Hello there. This is the intro to the video. I made it much longer than I meant to. What I wanted to do is I wanted to, I wanted to go over the entire book. I wanted it to be like maybe like 10, 20 minutes, 10 to 30 minutes, 30 at most. And I'd go over the book and then I'd give my thoughts at the end. Just about Jake's like psychology, and like I'd give an analysis on the book and like give my thoughts on it. But what happened is during the book, I just kept on talking about parts that I found important. Like I thought I shouldn't skip parts that I find important, and I found so much of it important. Like there's definitely stuff that I could have cut out, but like I didn't, and I already like recorded it, so might as well post it. So the next good amount of time, I'll put timestamps, so you can skip all of my basically I just tell the entire story of the book. I tell the entire story of the book from beginning to end, and by the end of it I'm basically just reading the pages straight to you because I feel like it's so important. But yeah, this video is basically just me rambling, or not rambling, me telling you the entire story of the book for like an hour, maybe longer. I'm not sure at this point. And then there's like a 10-minute end point where I talk about I like psychoanalyze Jake, and I talk about like my own experiences, or not my own experiences, but I talk about like how I relate with him. So yeah, I'm going into the big section of story now, so you can skip that if you want. I'll give you a timestamp to skip to if you don't want to listen to it. Oh, also, the music you hear in the background, I made it. It's pretty subpar, you know it's pretty subpar, and I it's like just bad background music, but that's kind of what I was going for. So yeah, the background music is by me. It'll be going throughout the video from this point on. Hello. So I'm gonna do a little summary. Maybe not a little summary. I'm gonna do a summary on the book, and I'll try to go I'll try to go through it, just skim through it, and I'll go deeper into parts I think are important, and I'll try to read important passages, or passages I feel are important. Okay, now to start with the actual book. It starts with the narrator thinking, "I'm thinking of ending things. Once this thought arrives, it sticks, it lingers, it dominates. There's not much I can do about it, trust me. It doesn't go away. It's there whether I like it or not. It's there when I eat, when I go to bed. It's there when I sleep. It's there when I wake up. It's always there, always. I haven't been thinking about it for a long time. The idea is new, but it feels old at the same time. When did it start? What if this thought wasn't conceived by me, but planted in my mind, pre-developed? Is an unspoken idea unoriginal? I've actually known it all along. Maybe this is how it's always going to end." So after that, the first little bit of the book, she thinks how it's the idea of ending things is frightening to her because it's a thought and you can't fake a thought. Like the idea that if it comes from inside your head, it's what you're thinking, and it's what you want, kind of, I guess. They then, her and Jake then speak a little bit about what is it? Sorry. They speak a bit about stopping for coffee. She decides she doesn't want to, and she would rather just eat at the parents' house. And then they talk about just random stuff, how much Jake's parents know about her, which is not much because he hasn't really told him much. They then think about how what is it called again? They met, which was at a trivia night thing. And she thinks about how she only met Jake six or 7 weeks ago, but it feels like she's been with him forever. At the end of all the chapters in this book, there's usually there isn't actually any it doesn't say at the top of the book what chapter you're on, and there isn't really you can't really see anything about chapters, but usually at the end of a couple pages, the book will just stop for a page, and then you'll get a little text response in italics about in the future or something. So this little bit, this is the first bit. It says,
I still don't understand. How could something like this happen? We're all in shock. Nothing so horrible has happened around here. No, not like this. In all the years I've worked here. I would think not. I didn't sleep last night. Not a wink. Me neither. Couldn't get comfortable. I can barely eat. You should have seen my wife when I told her. I thought she was going to be sick. How could he actually do it? Go through with it. You don't do that on a whim. You couldn't. It's scary is what it is. Scary and disturbing. So did you know him? Were you close or... No, not close. I don't think anyone was close with him. He was a loner. That's his nature. Kept to himself. Standoffish. Some knew him better, but, it's crazy. It doesn't seem real. It's one of those terrible things. But unfortunately, it's very real. This will continue to happen throughout the book, and I'll read the entirety of it whenever it comes up. After this, her and Jake have a little conversation, just like, how are the roads? Not bad. Glad it's not snowing. Hopefully it won't start. Looks cold out there. Just stuff like that. Just like small talk. She then thinks about how she, loves Jake and how they're special together, and how individually they're insignificant, but together they're something special. And then she thinks about a nightmare that she has, where she feels like there's a man at her window. When she was younger, she always felt that there was a man at her window watching her, and sometimes she feels like she'd see him walk by, and one time she woke up and he was just sitting there, just looking at her, and she doesn't know why, but it gives her nightmares at night sometimes. And then she thinks about how she loves Jake a little bit more, and then she gets called, by this mysterious number called the caller. So what is it called again? When the caller first called, they said the narrator explained, sorry, you have the wrong number, and then he said, I'm sorry, in a scratchy, effeminate voice. He then waited for a little bit and then hung up. And then for the next while, this caller person just continues to call the narrator over and over again. Except now if the narrator answers the call, they'll just breathe not actually saying anything, and they'll always leave a message, which is, there's only one question to resolve. I'm scared. I feel a little crazy. I'm not lucid. The assumptions are right. I can feel my fear growing. Now is the time for the answer. Just one question. One question to answer. Obviously very, very strange. This caller person just leaves her this message all the time. He has for the last couple weeks. She doesn't tell Jake about it because she doesn't want to freak him out. This has been giving her nightmares and making her very scared. She's very afraid. She doesn't understand why. Throughout the story, the caller will continually call her, and she's going to continually just say, oh no, it's nothing, Jake. That's just my friend. I'll just I'll talk to him later. It's fine. Or just throughout the story, she'll continually get called, and she'll continually hang up the phone to just not speak to this caller. And then at the end of this bit, we get another ending bit, which they talk about. The people in this bit talk about, the night you called, we were having a dinner party. I'd made a pecan galette with salted caramel sauce for dessert. That call, the whole night was ruined for everyone after we heard. I can still remember every word of your call. The kids were out, and when I heard, I called you right away. Was he depressed or sick? Do we know if he was depressed? Apparently he wasn't on any antidepressants. He was keeping secrets, though. I'm sure there were more. Yeah, if only we'd known how serious he was. If only there had been some signs. There's always signs. People don't just do that. This wasn't a rational person. That's true. That's a good point. He's not like us. No, not like us at all. If you have nothing, there's nothing to lose. Yeah, nothing to lose. So whoever they're talking about, obviously was depressed, and it's heavily implied that he took his own life, and they're just talking about how his taking of his own life ruined the night for them, which is like, I feel like that's in bad taste. Like, oh, that guy killed himself. That ruined the night for us. And like, how, like, he's not, like, kind of dehumanizing him by like saying that was not a rational person. He's nothing like us. So like, yeah, that happens. And then, yeah. Before she's able to say, like, I didn't do that. And then in the most animated she's ever seen Jake, because like, usually he's pretty reserved, like he's shocked, almost angry. He says, "What? I can't believe you did that. What the hell came over you?" And they then talk about it. They then talk about it for a little bit, and then the idea that a memory is not, like, is different every time it's recalled. It's not like, like factual. It's fiction. Like memories are like fictitious because every time you bring it up, it's different. So it's not absolute fact. And then they talk about how, what is it called again? Jake asks, "What would you think if I said I was the smartest person in the entire world?" And then she said, "There's a variety of reasons why you're not that." And then he says, "What are the reasons?" And then she's like, because you can't. I don't even know where to start. It's too far fetched to be real. Like, of course it is, but what if I'm part of this? What if I'm the smartest person in the entire world? And then he's like, "That's the great thing about it. It's not like being the best kisser in the world, because you can't be the best kisser alone. You can't be the best kisser in the entire world alone. You can be the smartest. So if I was the smartest person in the entire world, then I'd be the smartest person in the entire world." They then, like, speak a little bit more about stuff and things. And then we get an end bit, which is, "He had keys. He wasn't scheduled to be here, but he had keys. He could do whatever he wanted. Wasn't there supposed to be some revarnishing done during the break?" "Yes, but that happened right at the start of the holiday, so the varnish would have time to dry. The varnish scent can be pretty strong. Toxic? Again, I'm not sure, but if that's all you're breathing, are we going to see any autopsy results? I can look into that. Was it messy? You can imagine. I can. We shouldn't get into details right now. I hear they found a breathing apparatus, a gas mask, near the body." "Yes, but it was an old one. It's unclear if it still worked. There's so much we don't know about what really happened in there, and the only one who could tell us is gone." After this, they then talk a little bit about Jake's job. He gives her like a virtual tour of like all the things that he would show her, and then out of nowhere, she says, "Have you ever been depressed or anything?" And then it's just completely out of nowhere, and then she says, "Sorry, that was out of the blue. I'm just thinking about what," and she thinks that her life. She feels that her life has been very flat. She doesn't think that she's depressed, but she feels like that it's been very flat. And then she says, what is it called again? "Sometimes I feel sad for no apparent reason. I say, 'Does this happen to you?' And then he says, 'Not particularly, I don't think. I used to worry when I was a kid.' Worry? Yeah, like I would worry about insignificant things. Sometimes people, strangers might worry me. I had trouble sleeping. I'd get stomach aches." "How old were you then?" "Young, maybe 8, 9, would get bad. My mom would make me kids' tea, which was pretty much milk and sugar. We'd sit and talk. About what? Just stuff I was worried about." But yeah, basically he's really worried about just a bunch of random stuff. And the main character, narrator, thinks, like, she asks him if she has depression, if he has depression, and she literally, like, talks about some like she talks about some, like, symptoms of depression, which is like, your entire life feeling flat and then also getting sad for no reason. But then while she tells him that, she's also thinking, I don't have depression. So she's like, I think she does have depression, and she's denying that she has depression. And then, it goes on, and then she gets called by the caller again. Jake asks about it, and then she's like, "It's just my friend, I'll deal with it later." And then they talk about Jake's last girlfriend for a while. How it didn't really work out. And then, she talks. She then thinks about, like, how just like, her and Jake's relationship, and she thinks, "Thanks for inviting me." And then we get to another end bit, and the end bit says, "The body was found in the closet." "Really?" "Yeah, a small closet, big enough to hang shirts and jackets, some boots, Not much else. The body was all scrunched up in there. The door was closed. It makes me sad and angry. Why not reach out to someone, right? Talk to someone. He had coworkers. It wasn't like he was working in a place without other people. There were people around him all the time. I know, it didn't have to happen this way. Of course not. Do we know his background? Not a lot. He was smart, well-read. He knew things. He'd had an earlier career, some sort of academic work, PhD level, I think. That didn't last, and he ended up here. He wasn't married? No, he wasn't married. No wife, no kids, no one. It's rare these days to see someone living like that entirely alone. So this is another bit where they're like, depressed guy, how dare you not get help? Like, I don't think that's fair, because it's not as faulty as depression.
So at this point in the story, they've finally made it to Jake's parents' house. They both get out of the car, and the narrator is just so tired and cold, and she just wants to go inside. But then Jake's like, no, I want to stretch my legs. Like, I don't really want to go in yet. I'll give you a tour. And then she's like, yeah, fine, you can give me a tour. And then he shows her the apple orchard and the garden, and then he takes her to the barn. When she walks into the barn, she sees a bunch of sheep lying on the ground, and she she thinks to herself that they look spiritless, as if they've lost their souls. Like there is zero light in their eyes, and they just look just so down. And then in the corner of the room, she sees some dead lambs, and she looks at them, and she thinks about how they don't even look like they've ever been alive in the first place. Like they look like it looks like they could have never been alive at all ever in the history of time. And she thinks that to herself, and then she asks Jake, hey, what's gonna happen to those lambs? And then Jake just says, nothing, they're frozen. In the summer they'll thaw, and then we can burn them. And then she's kind of sad about that, but she keeps it to herself. And then Jake shows her the old pig pen, which no longer houses any pigs. The narrator asks, hey, what happened to the pigs? And then Jake is well, you see, the story is, and then he decides, wait, actually no, it's too, because he thinks it's too grisly, he doesn't want to tell her. But then she's like, well, now you have to tell me. So then he tells her the story, which is basically there was two pigs. They stayed in there. They were good for a couple of years. They did pig stuff, and then for at one point they started just sitting in the corner of the room, just not moving at all, just completely immobilized. But they looked fine from far away. So the family the family was busy and couldn't look close at them, so they just throw food at them and just left. And then eventually one day the father, was like, hey, that's kind of weird, why haven't they moved? And then he decides to get a closer look, and then he goes up close, and then he tries to lift the pig, nearly falls over, but then he does, and he found its belly was swarming with maggots, thousands of them. It looked like the entire underside was covered in moving rice. The other one was even worse than the first. Both pigs were literally being eaten alive from the inside out, and you'd never known it if you just looked at them from afar. From a distance, they seemed content, relaxed. Up close, it was a different story. This pig thing will be important later, but I'll get to it later. But yeah, it's important later, but I'll get to it later. So she goes in. So then after that, she's like, "Oh my God, Jesus, that is, horrifying." And then she thinks to herself, the pigs had to be put down, but what if suffering doesn't end after death? She says, "What if suffering doesn't end after death? How can we know? What if it doesn't get any better? What if death isn't an escape? What if the maggots continue to feed and feed and feed and feed and continue to be felt? This possibility scares me." And I've read some fiction that also deals with that topic, and that is actually horrifying. just wanted to add a little note. And then they go into the chicken coop, and she immediately steps in some excrement, and then she's like, "Huh, that's weird. The chickens are eating their own eggs." And then Jake comments on how they do that when the eggs aren't picked. And then they finally go outside, and then she realizes, oh, I'm starving, and so is Jake. They both haven't ate anything all day, so they finally go in the house, and the house is pretty cold. So Jake offers her his old slippers. There is they have a lot of sentimental value to them because they're his favorite slippers, and she accepts them. when she puts them on, she notes they don't like fit right. Like she thinks that to herself, and then she looks around the house, and she feels like she's stepped back in time. Like she feels like the house is like a couple decades in the past with like how like old everything is. Like they use oil lamps and like all their furniture is like at least 2 decades old, and like but it's like a nice house. It just looks old. And then she sees a scratched up door, like that's like really like broken down, and then she's like, "Hey Jake, what does that lead to?" And then he says, "That's just the basement." And then he just talks about how like terrible it is and like horrible, and how she should forget about its like existence. And then she sees a painting, and then she asks, "Hey Jake, what's that painting?" And then he says, "Oh, that's my grandma." And then he says she wasn't very happy. She had problems, and I'm not even sure why we keep that painting up. And then the narrator asks about another painting, and then Jake says it's a painting of him as a child. And the narrator thinks, "Huh, that's really weird. I don't think that's Jake as a child." And she gets closer, and then she's like, "That looks exactly like me as a kid." And then we get another end bit, which is they say he'd pretty much stopped talking. Stopped talking, became nonverbal, would work but not talk. It was awkward for everyone. I would pass him in the hall, would say hi, and he'd have a hard time looking me square in the eye. He'd blush, become distant. Really? Yeah, I remember regretting hiring him, and not because he was incompetent. Everything was always clean and tidy. He did his job, but it just got to the point where I had this feeling, like I sensed something, like something wasn't normal. This sort of justifies her feeling. It does. I should have acted, done something, I guess based on my gut. You can't start second guessing yourself after the fact. We can't let the actions of one man make us feel guilty. This isn't about us. We're the normal ones. It's only about him. You're right. It's good to be reminded of that. So what now? We try to forget this. All of this. We find a replacement. We move. And then once again, guy kills himself. And then they're like, "Oh, we're normal, thank God." Oh, it's so good to be reminded that we're normal and he's not. That's amazing. Which is like, really screwed. But, yeah. At this point, they're all sitting at the table. Like Jake, and his girlfriend are both sitting at the table, and they're just like sitting there. They're really, really hungry, and they realize like, isn't it weird how like, the narrator realizes, isn't it weird how, I've been here for like 10-20 minutes and I still haven't seen his parents. And then right as she's about to ask, like, "Hey Jake, where are your parents?" Both of his parents just walk through the door. And then she's standing up to say hello, and then his dad's like, "Sit, nice to meet you." And then, in like 3 seconds, they all like, just like, say hello. Like, she remarks, "It happened so quickly, no formal introductions, no handshakes. I guess this is normal." And she says, "I can tell his dad's reserved, borderland standoffish, and his mom is smiling a lot, and his mom has not stopped smiling since she's left the kitchen, and she's wearing like lots and lots of makeup, and she's wearing like a really like formal dress, even though it's just dinner, and the narrator notes she seems a bit shaky or delicate, as if she might at any moment shatter like a dropped glass." And then when the narrator is like putting her napkin like on her lap, she catches a glimpse of the mom's foot, and on her right foot, her big toe is just missing the entire nail. So she's like, "Oh, that's weird." And then dad is just wearing like socks, leather slippers, blue work pants, plaid shirt, and he has a band-aid like on his forehead. And then the mom just announces, I've been having problems with my ears." And then Jake's dad's like, "You have more than a problem." And then she says, "Tinnitus. It's what it is." And then the narrator's like, "Sorry, what's that?" And then the mom says, "I hear a buzzing in my ears, in my head, not all the time, but a lot of the time. A steady buzzing in the background of life. At first, they thought it was just from the earwax, but it's not. That's terrible, says the narrator. I think I've heard of that before. And then the mom says, and my hearing's generally getting worse. It's all related. And then the dad says, she asks me to repeat myself all the time. And then the mom says, and it's the voices. I hear whispers. And then the narrator just looks at Jake, just like, searching his face for like answers, but he just doesn't. He just like focused on his plate, looking straight down. And hearing whispers with tinnitus is strange because it's usually just a bit of a hum. Hearing whispers, that's really weird because you're not supposed to hear whispers with tinnitus. It's very strange. And then the narrator's phone goes off, and then everyone's like, and then Jake's like, answer. Your friend has been calling all night. You should answer that. And then Jake's mom's like, we don't mind if your friend needs something. And then narrator's just like, no, it's nothing. It's like, it's fine. And the phone just keeps on ringing, and no one's speaking. And then eventually it just stops. And then Jake's dad says, these symptoms sound worse than they really are. It's not like what you see in the movies. The whispers, as I call them, they aren't really voices like yours or mine. They don't say anything intelligible. It's tough on her, especially at night. Night is the worst. I don't sleep any much. And then basically she talks about how she has sleep paralysis. So like she'll like wake up in the middle of the night like completely terrified. She doesn't describe what she's seeing, but she just says that she feels a heavy weight on her chest and she can't breathe. And then again, the phone rings, and then Jake drops his fork on the plate, and everyone turns to him to like look at him, and he says sorry, and he's like the narrator says, then there's quiet. I have never seen Jake so singularly focused on a plate of food. He stares at it, but he's not even eating. And then like the father asks how was the drive, and it's busy. The country roads don't get a lot of use. Blah 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 blah. People don't like driving in the cold snow. Might take a while and be a bit cold. And then the mom says, "You're from the suburbs, right?" And then the narrator says, "Born and raised." And then she says, "Yes, we've been to your part of the world. It's right near the water." And then the narrator says, "Yes, I don't think we've been there." And the narrator's like, "Huh? You just said." Like, she thinks this, she doesn't say this to anyone, but she thinks, you just said, yes, we've been to your part of the world. And then immediately after, the next sentence you said is, I don't think we've ever been there. Maybe she's just tired, she thinks to herself. And then, Jake's dad mentions Jake's last girlfriend, which, Jake just doesn't want to, like, talk about. So he just, doesn't. And then the mom says, I have an idea. And then they propose a game, which they've played a lot, which is basically imitating other people. So the mom says, you do his voice, talk like him, do whatever like him. Oh, that would be fun, about Jake. So then the narrator says, hello, I'm Jake. Biochemistry has many virtues. So too do literature and philosophy. And then, his mom and dad just, start laughing. Not bad at all. And then they ask Jake to go, and then he says, like, yeah, I'll go. And then what she did to him was she was just like, imitating him. What Jake does is like less like imitating, or like she says that he like becomes her. He uses her like, hand and facial gestures. He brushes, invisible hair behind himself. She says, it's startling, precise, off-putting, unpleasant. This isn't a gag impersonation. He's taking this too seriously. He's becoming me in front of everyone. So, and then when it's done, the mom and dad just start laughing. And then, again, a phone rings, but this time it's finally not her phone. And it's just the farm landline. And then the mom goes and gets it. And then Jake asks who was it, and then mom says no one, wrong number. And then again, they just say, hey, check your phone, we don't mind. At this point, dessert is now brought out, and the narrator cannot eat it because she's like lactose intolerant, and it's a chocolate log cake with like lots and lots and lots of whipped cream. And then her Jake's mom comes back, and then for some reason she's wearing a different outfit. It's like it's basically the exact same outfit. Like it's basically the exact same dress, but it's just a different color. She says like a computer glitch caused a small distortion to the dress, and then she's like, maybe she just spilled something on it. Uh, and then Jake's dad is like, hey, can we get you something else? Are you sure you don't want to have some cake? And then she says, no, I'm fine. Dinner was great. I'm stuffed. And then Jake's mom's like, too bad you don't like cream. I know it's a little fattening, but it's tasty. It does look good, I say. And then she's like holding off on like correcting her about not liking it, and simply not being able to eat it. Jake hasn't eaten it. Jake hasn't eaten it. He hasn't even touched his fork or plate. He's just resting in his chair, playing with a strand of his hair. Uh, what is it called again? She feels a jolt, and she feels like she's been pinched, and then she realizes that she's been biting her nails. Her index finger is in her mouth, and the nail on her thumb is almost half chewed off. And she's like, I don't know. I can't recall when I started doing this. I must have been doing this all throughout dinner. And then she like he's like, how could I not have realized that I've been chewing my entire nail off? And like she has a piece of nail like stuck in her like teeth, and she's like disgusted. And then Jake's dad asks, hey, can you help me with some stuff? And then Jake's like, yeah, sure. And then what is it called again? Uh, the narrator then thinks like the whole meal was a little weird. The house is a little weird. His parents are a little weird. The whole trip isn't really what she thought it would be. And she also like feels like as soon as Jake got to the parents' house, he's been acting like pretty different. And like she's kind of like uncomfortable, like, and she's just like like she's not sure like what's really happening. uh and then she says like she assumed that both of his parents would be such great conversationalists, because Jake is one of the best conversationalists she knows. And she remembers Jake once telling her that the two most important things for quality intellectual interaction are: one, keep simple things simple and complex things complex; two, don't enter any conversation with a strategy or a solution. And then she asks, "Hey, can I just go to the bathroom?" And then Jake's like, "Yeah, it's right there." It takes her, like she's at this point she's in the washroom. It takes her a second or two to find the light switch. She's just like running her hands along the wall, and then she finally flicks it on. And then, it's a very it's a very it's not the light is very dim. It's not very bright at all, and she has to squint to see. And then she realizes how dark the house is with that light. And then she finally gets out the big chunk of nail from her teeth, and it's massive and disgusting, and she drops in the toilet. And she looks at her ring finger and her nail, and her thumb, and on both of them she's bitten off most of her, a good portion of her nail, and she's bleeding now. And there's no mirror above the sink, so she can't check what's happening to her face or anything. uh and she had lots and lots of wine, because they had really big wine glasses, and Jake's dad kept on filling them. So she had so her head kind of aches. uh and like she's a little confused, and then she like flashes back for some reason to being back in the being back at dinner when Jake's parents were both out of the room for some reason, and they were just like arguing like really it was like something was like boiling over, and they were like arguing like really loudly, and then she asks, "Hey Jake, what's going on?" And then Jake's like, what are you talking about?" And then you know she like flushes the toilet. And then she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go now." And then you know she looks around everything. It looks very clean, and there's just like she just like takes in all the details of everything. She washes her hand and notices a small dazed housefly at the edge of the basin. Uh, and then she crushes the fly with her thumb, because she thinks there's no way it's ever getting out, and at least it'll have a fast death, and staying there for the rest of time until it dies of dehydration, or not dehydration, but old age, or malnutrition. And she then thinks about she feels like she's not alone in the bathroom for some reason. Like she feels like somebody's followed her in, but obviously that hasn't happened. And then she finally puts on her slippers and she gets outside. And then all of a sudden her nose is bleeding for some reason. At this point, she leaves the bathroom and then starts heading down the hall. And she passes the door that is for the basement, and it's open. She stops and she puts her hand against the door, and she notices how it really needs some oil, because at the slightest touch it's it starts to creak. Uh, and then she hears some noise down there, so she starts going down there. And she notes how the stairs are uneven and precarious, and there's no banister, so she just has to follow the wall to get down. Eventually, when she makes it to the bottom, there's just rows and rows of shelves and boxes and dust. And she's thinking, we don't use it, and how Jake said we don't use it, and there's nothing down there. And she's like, that's not really true. And then she sees a furnace and some other piece of equipment. And then she's like, yeah, this place really is more nothing more than a hole in the ground. And there's really nothing here at all. She's like, yeah, Jake probably didn't want me to see this. That's probably why he didn't want me to come down here. But I won't take long. And then she sees that a fan's on, and she's like, why is there a fan on? It's cold enough as it is. And then she sees a painting. She's like, is the fan on to dry the paint? Why would anyone paint down here? You have to there's no chair, so you'd have to crouch over to do any painting. And she almost at the point where the painting is, she almost has to bend. She has to bend over to not hit her head on the ceiling beam. So painting down there would not be fun. And then she sees that it's a portrait of the basement, and there is, and the only it's just a portrait of the basement. Everything there, is the normal basement, except instead of the furnace, there is a woman, or maybe it's a man. It's an entity, an individual with long hair, standing slightly bent over, with long arms, long fingernails, really long, almost like claws. They aren't growing longer, sharper, but they look like they are. At the bottom corner of the painting, there's a second person, much smaller. A child? And then staring at this picture reminds her of something that Jake said, which is it's the integration of both. He said that matters. This integration reflects the way our minds work. The way we function and interact are split between logic, reason, and something else. something closer to feeling or spirit. There's a word that will probably make you bristle, but we can't, even though the most practical minded of us understand the world through rationality, not entirely. We depend on symbols for meaning. And then she says, and then she just looks over at him, and then he says, and I'm not talking about the Greeks. This is pretty common thread, West and East. It's universal. When you say symbols, you mean allegory, elaborate metaphor. We don't just understand or recognize significance and validity through experience. We accept, reject, and discern through symbols. There is an important. They are as important to our understanding of life, our understanding of existence, and what has values. That's worthwhile as math is science. And I'm saying this as a scientist, and it's all part of how we work through things and how we make decisions. See, what I'm saying is, I hear how it sounds, which is very obvious and trite, but it's interesting. And then she looks at the painting again. The plain face of a person, nondescript, the nails pointing down, wet, almost dripping. The fan creaks back and forth. There is a small, dirty bookcase behind the paintings. It's full of old paper, pages and pages, drawings. I pick one up. The paper is thick, and another. They're all of this room. They're all of the basement. And in each drawing, there's a different person in the place of the furnace. Some with short hair, some with long. One has horns, some have breasts, some penises, some both. All have long nails and a similar, knowing, paralyzed expression. In each picture there's a child too, usually in the corner, sometimes in other places, on the ground, looking up at the larger figure. In one, the child is in the stomach of the woman. In another, the woman has two heads and one of the heads is of the child. And then she hears footsteps upstairs, and she hears, Jake's mom and dad arguing about something. And she gets closer to hear. And then we hear, he can't keep doing this, it's not sustainable. He spent all of that time to get there, just to quit. He threw it away. Of course I worry. He needs predictability, something steady. He's alone too much. And then she wonders if they're talking about Jake. You're telling me you kept telling him he could do whatever he wanted. What was I supposed to say? You can't get by day after day being that shy and introverted so. And then, she can't figure out what they're saying. Needs to get out of his own head, move on. He left the lab. That was his decision. He never should have started down that path in the first place. The thing is, and then something they can't make out again. Yes, I know he's smart, but it doesn't mean he had to go down that route. And then a job he can keep down, hold down. And then the narrator's like, left the lab? What are they talking about? What do they mean? Jake's still working there. What? And they're really confused. And then a paint can tips and crashes into the wall, and then she feels a horrible feeling of claustrophobia, and she's scared. And then she decides to leave and get out of there. And then she realizes that there's a lock and latch on the inside of the trapdoor. So basically, you can lock the door from the inside of the basement. You can't lock it from the outside. So, which is very strange, because I don't know why you want to lock yourself in the basement. So, and she wonders that too, why would you want to lock yourself in the basement? But, okay. And we get another end, which is, do we know the official cause of death? Bled out from the puncture wounds. Awful. Bled for hours, we think. Quite a bit of blood. It must have been terrible to stumble across. Yes, I imagine it was. Horrible. Something you'd never forget. At this point, the dining room is completely empty, and the entire ground floor is entirely empty. And she calls, and the narrator calls Jake, and she can't find anyone. So then she just looks at photographs, and she decides, Jake said that he might go to the upper floor after dinner. So then she starts going up there, and then she sees a door with a small J hanging above it. So then she walks in, and it's Jake's old bedroom, and it has a nice comfy bed, a nice comfy couch. It has a bunch of stuff, paper clips, notepads, books, just a bunch of stuff. And there is a envelope called Us. and she opens it, and inside she finds about 30 photos, and they're all close-up shots of body parts: knees, elbows, fingers, toes, lips, teeth, gums, like hair, skin, pimples. And the narrator can't tell if they're all the same person or not, but she puts all the on she puts all of them back in the envelope, and she wonders, if it's like some sort of like art piece that Jake made when he was younger or something. Uh, and then she realizes that other than that like picture of Jake, that she is almost 100% sure that she is like certain that is not Jake. She realizes that she has never seen a picture of Jake ever. And then she sees a picture of a blonde girl, and she realizes that it was Jake's old girlfriend that she heard about. And basically, what happened was his old girlfriend was like really in love with him, or Jake claimed, but it never really meant the same thing to him, so it didn't really work out. And then as she's looking at the photo, a hand touches her shoulder, and then she jumps. Uh, and she realizes that it's Jake's father, and then she says, "You startled me." And then he says, "Sorry, I thought you were in here with Jake." And then they talk for a little bit about how it's a little cold, and didn't mean to like startle you. It looked like you were trembling. And they just talk a little bit, and like, "Are you sure you're okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine." And then they talk about how they're converting get his old bedroom into a guest room. And they talk and talk for a little bit. They ask if she wants any coffee, and she says, "No, I'm fine. I like coffee, but we probably should go." And he's like, "Oh no, I don't know. Why don't you stay the night?" And she's like, Jake has work tomorrow." And then he looks back at her with a puzzled gaze, and he's like, "Oh, okay." And then he goes on to tell her that although it may seem it, his wife is not crazy. She's just excited to see you. And she like she's not going mad or mentally ill. She just has some weird hearing thing. And you know like it's like the smiling, it's just something that she does sometimes. It's just like it's just what she does. And then he talks about how great they're a match. And you know he then says, "We all like you, especially Jakey. It makes sense. He needs you." And then the narrator like looks back smiling, and she thinks, "I keep smiling. I can't seem to stop." At this point, the narrator is just like, "I want to get out of here. I have my coat on. Jake's already outside. I'm getting out of here. I want to go home. I'm so tired." And then she's like, "But I have to say bye to Jake's mom. She's bringing me like leftovers, whatever." And then the mom comes with leftovers. "Here's a little bit of everything. Some cake too. Keep it straight, or you're gonna have a mess on your hands." And then she's like, "Yeah, thanks for the good night." And then the mom says, "Hey, we have a room for you to stay. You can stay if you want to." And then almost pleading for her to stay. And then the narrator's like, "I don't know, sorry, Jake has to get back." And then she's like, "Whoa, wait, I just remembered something. Don't go just yet." And then mom runs off and grabs something when she comes back, and she said, "I decided tonight that I want you to have this." And she hands the narrator a piece of paper that's been folded a couple times, and it's small enough that she can fit it in her pocket. And then the narrator says, "Oh, thanks." And then the mom says, "I've forgotten now, of course, how long exactly, but it's been in the works for quite some time. I started to unfold it." She raises her hand. "No, don't open it yet. You're not ready yet. I'm sorry. It's a surprise for you. Open it when you arrive." "When I arrive where?" She doesn't answer. She just keeps smiling. Then she says, "It's a painting." "Thank you. Is it one of yours?" Jake and I used to draw and paint together when we were younger, for hours at a time. He loved art. And then the narrator wonders if they did that in a dank basement. And you know, and then she says, "We have a studio. It's quiet. It was her favorite room in the house. Was, was. Oh, I don't know. You'd have to ask Jake." Her eyes welled up, and I'm worried she's going to outright cry. "Thank you for the gift, I say. That's so kind of you. We'll both appreciate it, I'm sure. It's for you, only for you. It's a portrait," she says, "of Jake." At this point, the narrator and Jake are in the car. The narrator realizes that they haven't discussed anything about, the night, and she'd like to, but she doesn't really know how. Then all of a sudden, Jake says, "Teardrops are aerodynamic. All cars should be shaped like teardrops." And then the narrator's like, "What?" And then he says, "It's funny to see some of these cars that are still designed and marketed as fuel efficient. Look at how boxy that one is." And then the narrator says, I don't mind uniqueness. Even things that are very unique. I like things that are different. By definition," and then Jake says, "by definition, nothing can be very unique. It's either unique or it isn't." Yeah, I know. Then it says narrator, and then she thinks I'm too tired for this. And cars shouldn't be unique. That driver probably complains about global warming and climate change, yet wants a unique car. Every car should be shaped like a teardrop. That would show people were serious about fuel efficiency. And then the narrator is just like, he's off on a Jake rant. "I don't care about fuel efficiency at the best times, so definitely don't right now. I just want to talk about what happened at his parents' house, or go home and get home so I can sleep." And then she asks him, "So who is that girl on your shelf?" What girl?" The girl with the blonde hair standing in a field, on the edge of a field, the one in your room." "Steph, I guess." "Why do you ask?" "Just curious. She's pretty. She's attractive. I never really saw her as beautiful or anything." "She's very pretty. Did you date her, or is she a friend?" "Was a friend. We dated for a bit, just after high school. For a bit after." "Was she also in biochemistry?" "No, music. She was a musician." "What kind?" "She played a lot of instruments." Taught she was the first one to introduce me to the old stuff, classics, country, Dolly Parton and stuff like that. There were narratives in these songs. Do you ever see her?" "No, not really. It didn't work." And at this point, Jake is like biting his thumbnail a little bit, and she wants to keep on poking, but she realizes it's not going to go anywhere. So then she asks, "Who is the guy in the background?" And then he says, "What?" In the background behind her, there was a guy lying on the ground. He was looking at her. It wasn't you. "I don't know. I'd have to see the photo again." "You must know what I mean. I haven't looked at those photos in a long time. It's the only one with her in it, and it's weird because this guy, I can't say. Why can't I say it?" A minute goes by, and then, a minute goes by, and then, Jake is just says, "It's probably my brother. I think I remember him being in one of those pictures." And then the narrator's like, "What? Jake has a brother? How has this never come up? I didn't know yet. I did not know he had a brother. I thought you knew. No, this is crazy. How did I not know this?" The narrator says jokingly, but they realize joking probably isn't a good idea, because Jake is all serious right now. And then the narrator asks, "Are you too close?" And then he says, "I wouldn't say that." "Why not?" "Family stuff. It's complicated. He took after my mom, and you don't?" And then Jake just glares at her for a second, and then he says, "Does it seem normal to you?" "What?" My house, my parents. What do you care about normal? Just answer. I want to know." "Sure, for the most part, yeah." And the narrator's like, "Yeah, I'm not really going to go into how I really feel. Not now. I don't want to." And then the narrator says, "I'm not going to pry, but you have this brother, and is he like your mom? And how is he like your mom exactly?" And then Jake starts rubbing his forehead, and then he says, "A few years ago, my brother developed some problems. We didn't think it was anything serious. He'd always been extremely solitary, couldn't relate to others. We thought he was just depressed. Then he started following me around. He didn't do anything dangerous. It was odd, the following. I asked him to stop, but he didn't. there's a lot of recourse to take. I kind of had to cut him out of my life, lock him out. It's not like he couldn't take care of himself. He can. I don't believe he's seriously mentally ill, not dangerously. I think he could be rehabilitated. I believe he's a genius, and he's deeply unhappy. It's hard to spend that much time alone. It's hard to not have anyone. A person can live like that for a while, but my brother got very sad, very lonely. He needed things, asked for things I couldn't help with. It's not a big deal anymore, but of course it changed the dynamic of our family. And then the narrator's like, whoa, this is big. And it's like, maybe I still have a couple more questions. And then she asks, what do you mean he followed you around? And then Jake says, it doesn't matter. He's not around anymore. It's over now. But, and then the narrator says, but I'm interested. And then Jake turns up the radio in the middle of their conversation, which the narrator finds a little annoying. And then he says, my brother was on track to become a full professor, but couldn't handle the environment. He had to leave his work. He could do the job, but everything else, anything that had to do with interacting with coworkers was too hard for him. He'd start every day with a wave of anxiety and the thought of interacting with people. The strange part is that he liked them. He just couldn't speak. He just couldn't handle speaking with them. Like normal people, small talk and stuff. And then Jake starts accelerating after that. And then he says he needed to make a living, but had to find a new job, somewhere where he didn't have to give presentations, somewhere he could blend into the walls. Around the time he was in a bad place, he started following me around and talking to me, giving me orders and ultimatums, like a voice in my head, always there. He was interrupting my life, like sort of sabotage. And then the narrator says, how so? And then Jake just continues to accelerate. And then he said he started wearing my clothes. And then the narrator's like, what? Wearing your clothes? And then he says, like I said, he had some issues. I don't think it's a permanent thing. He's better now, all better. And then the narrator asks, were you close before he got all sick? And then Jake says, we were never overly close, but we got along. We're both smart and competitive, so that creates a bond. I don't know, I never saw it coming, his illness, He just sort of, lost it. It can happen, but it makes you wonder about knowing people. He's my brother, but I don't really know if I ever knew him. Must be tough for everyone. Yeah. And then Jake just keeps on increasing the speed. And then narrator asks, so, is that what your dad was asking about when you said your mom was stressed? And then Jake says, when did he tell you that? Why is he telling you that? And then he accelerates even more. And then the narrator says, he saw me in your room. He came to talk to me. He mentioned your mom's condition, not in detail, but how fast are you going, Jake? And then Jake says, did he mention trichotillomania? Sorry, my bad. Trichotillomania. I'll put it up on the screen. What? How she pulls out her hair. My brother had it too. She's very self-conscious about it. She pulled out most of her eyebrows and eyelashes. She already started on her head. I could see some thin spots tonight. That's terrible. My mom's pretty fragile. She'll be fine. I didn't realize it had gotten so bad. I wouldn't have invited you if I had known it would be so tense tonight. Somehow in my head it wasn't going to be like that, but I wanted you to see where I'm from. And then the narrator thinks about how she appreciates Jake's honesty, and it wasn't easy for him to tell her all about that, and she she's like, maybe I'm not gonna end things with him. And then she says, all families have quirks. And then he says, thanks for coming, really. And then they hold hands. Now there's another end bit. We've talked with almost everyone he'd worked with and have been able to put a picture together. He'd been developing some physical issues. Everyone noticed. He had a rash on his arm and in his neck. His forehead would get sweaty. Someone saw him a few weeks ago at his desk in some sort of daze, just looking at the wall. That all sounds alarming. I know it does now, but in the context of then, it seemed private, like his own health issue. No one wanted to meddle. There were a few incidents over the last year or so. He was playing his music quite loud during his breaks, and people would ask him to turn it down. He'd just ignore them and start the song over again. No one thought to make a formal complaint for playing music. Didn't seem like that big a deal. I guess not. Two people who were interviewed mentioned he had notebooks. He wrote a lot, but no one ever asked what he was writing. No, I suppose not. We found those notebooks. What was in them? His writing. He had a very neat, precise penmanship. But what was the content? The contents of what? The notebooks. Isn't that what matters? Well, what was he writing about? The content. What might it mean? Right, well, we haven't read them yet. In this next bit, Jake asks the narrator, do you want to stop for something sweet? And the narrator's like, yeah, sure, if you want to. And then Jake says, there's a Dairy Queen nearby. We'll definitely have some non-dairy stuff. And then the narrator talks about how, it's pretty funny how they didn't have any dessert at the parents' place, but because there was dairy in it. But now they're going to a Dairy Queen in the middle of winter to get something non-dairy. And at this point, it is now snowing. Before in the story, it was it was just pretty cold. Now it is actually snowing. And Jake says it has the feeling of a big storm. The wind is freezing. And then at this point, they finally make it to the Dairy Queen, and then they look through the menu, and they decide, let's get frozen lemonades. So then Jake says, we'll have a small lemonade. Actually, make it 2 lemonades. How big is your medium? And then she holds up, and then this girl who's very, very disinterested in what's happening, just talking to her friend, holds up a medium and is like, medium. And then he's like, yeah, that's fine. 1 small, 1 medium. And then the narrator says, small lemonade should be a strawberry lemonade, please, not just a normal lemonade. And there's no dairy in that, right? And the girl asks the other girl, there's no ice cream in the lemonade, is there? And then laughing and giggling at each other. And then the second girl asks, how bad is the allergy? And then the narrator says, it won't kill me, but it wouldn't make me, I wouldn't feel well. And then eventually a third girl comes in. She doesn't say anything to the first or second girl. And then she just starts making the lemonade without a word. And she looks up from the machine and says, sorry for the smell. They're doing some varnishing in the back. And the narrator thinks, varnishing in a Dairy Queen? And then they say, no worries. And then, for some reason, the narrator has this sudden feeling that they know this girl. They recognize her face, her build, her hair. They know her, but they can't put their finger on why. And she just stands there and makes her lemonade. And the narrator is just like, I don't understand. This never happened to me before. This is literally a stranger, but I know them. I know who this person is. And the girl is described as skinny and frail, and something's not right with her. Her hair is long and plain and falls over her back and much of her face. Her hands are small. She's not wearing any jewelry, no necklace or rings, and she appears to be fragile and anxious. She has a rash, a bad one, starting an inch or so above her waist, with are raised bumps just large enough for me to see. They get worse, redder upper elbow. I'm looking intensely at her rash. It looks sore and itchy. Let's try too. And flaky. She must be scratching it. When I look back up, she's looking at me. And so narrator's blushes and she diverts her eyes to the floor. Jake just isn't paying attention. The other 2 girls snicker. And then the skinny one puts the first lemonade down, and now there's a tremble in her hand as she's making the second one. And the narrator wonders, maybe these 2 girls are picking on this third girl. Is that why she seems so distraught? And then the narrator's like, I would never ever want to be forced to stay here. It seems terrible. And then she brings the second lemonade and gives it to her, And the narrator says, up close, she looks even worse. It's her eyes. And then the narrator says, thanks. And then the girl says back, I'm worried. And the narrator says back, excuse me? And then the girl says back, I shouldn't be saying this. I know I shouldn't. I know what happens. I'm scared. I know. It's not good. It's bad. Are you okay? You don't have to go. And then Jake is just not paying attention. And the other two girls are like laughing. And then the narrator asks, what are you scared of? And then the girl says back, it's not what I'm scared of. It's who I'm scared for. And then the narrator asks, who are you scared for? And the girl says, for you. And then she disappears back into the kitchen. At this point, they have both gotten back in the car with their frozen lemonades, and the narrator is thinking Jake is oblivious, as usual. At times, he can be very unaware and self-obsessed. And she asks him, did you see that girl? And then he says, which one? And then she says, the one who made the lemonades. And then he says, there were several girls. And then she says, no, only one of the girls made the drinks. Skinny, long hair. And he says, I don't know. Weren't they all skinny? And then the narrator wants to talk more about it on the subject. She wants to talk about the girl with her rash and how she was afraid, but she doesn't know how, and she just doesn't. So then they have some small talk over their lemonades, and then the narrator after a little bit leans forward and turns up the heat, and then Jake's like, gold, and then she says, yeah, a little bit, probably from the lemonade. And then Jake says, we're also in a snowstorm. Whose idea was it to get iced drinks anyway? And he looks at her and raises his eyebrows. And then, they both laugh. And then the narrator thinks, this will probably be the last time in her car with Jake. It seems like a shame when he's like this, joking, almost happy. Maybe I shouldn't end things. And she basically what she goes and has a very long paragraph about her relationship with Jake and how she feels that he's a good person, he's a good dude, but it just there's something missing. There's something that isn't there, and it's never been there, and they both need to move on. She needs to work on herself, and he needs to move on. And then after that, Jake says, "Looks like you're done." And then she realizes that she put her lemonade in the cup holder, and now they're both done with their lemonades, and they're both half done. And then Jake's they're gonna melt everywhere, and then the cup holders will get sticky. And the narrator's like, yeah. And then Jake says, I think I know where we can go. And then the narrator's like, you mean to throw them out? And then Jake says, if we keep going up ahead, there's a bit of excuse me, my bad. Down the road a bit is a high school. We can get rid of the cups there. And then the narrator's like, is it really important to get rid of these cups? Why would we stop to just do that? And then the narrator's like, it's not far, is it? I just the snow's not gonna get any better. I just want to go home. And then he says, not too far, I don't think. I just don't want to throw any cups out the window. It'll give you a chance to see a bit more of the area. And then the narrator's like, I'm not sure if he's joking about seeing more of the area, because she looks out the window and it's just, snow and darkness. And he's like, you know what I mean. And then they go down a very back it's a back road that is not wide enough for two cars. It is heavily forested area, and then Jake's like, yeah, down here, I remember this now. And then the narrator's like, you didn't go to the school, did you? It's really far from your house. And then he says, I was never a student here, but I've driven here a couple times. And then she asks, how long is it exactly? And then he says, I don't think it's much further. I can't remember. And then she's like, why? And then she thinks, why are we doing this? Why don't we just leave the drinks to melt? I just want to go home and clean myself. I don't want I don't want to go any deeper into this like forest. I just want this to end. And then she says, I bet it's nice during the day. Peaceful. Because she's trying to be positive. And then he says, yeah, definitely remote. And then she asks, how's the road? And then he says, messy, slick. I'm going slow. It hasn't been plowed yet. It shouldn't be much farther. Sorry, I thought it was closer. And then at this point, the narrator's starting to feel anxious. Just like a little bit. You know, just about like, you know, thinking about ending things, what his dad said, what his brother, everything, and just now this detour, just, you know, like everything that's happened to her so far is just like, you know, welling up in her mind. And then all of a sudden Jake says, look, I knew it up there. You see it? That's it. And then a few hundred yards ahead, there's a very large building, which is the school. At this point, they finally make it to the school, and the narrator thinks, whoa, he was right in the end. I'm glad to see the school. It's massive. And then Jake's like, you know, you didn't think it was gonna look like that. And then she's like, you know, I didn't expect it was gonna be that big. Why is there just a massive school in the middle of nowhere? And then he just, you know, dodges her question, says, there has to be somewhere to get rid of these cups. And then the narrator points to a garbage can, and then Jake, you know, grabs both lemonade cups with his hands. With one hand, opens the door and starts walking out. And then he walks over, and then he opens the garbage can, looks inside, looks back at the narrator, shrugs, and then walks away. And the narrator's like, huh? Where is he going? Why doesn't he just throw it there? And like, you know, they're feeling kind of paranoid. And then thinking about being around the school late at night, they get reminded to one time where when they went to their school after, you know, like after hours, and they just walked in because they forgot something, and all they found was a narrator who was so meticulous in his work that, you know, they didn't even like notice that the narrator was there. After this, she thinks about the girls from the Dairy Queen and how they're probably students at the school, and she thinks, like, you know, it's a long way for them to come because the Dairy Queen was so long, but it's, you know, probably the closest. The Dairy Queen is probably like the closest building to the school for the entire like school board. And then she flips the headlights on, and she's like, "Where's Jake?" Like, and then she opens her door and screams and yells, "Jake, what are you doing? Come on!" And then no answer. And then she screams, "Jake, let's go!" Nothing. She closes the door, and now she's like, you know, kind of afraid because she's like, she has no idea where she is. She hasn't seen a single car pass the entire time they've been on this trip, and she is like, you know, she feels like she's trapped here, and she like doesn't know what to do. So then she goes over to the horn and honks it 3 times, and then thinks, I should have been in bed hours ago. And then she thinks how, you know, how this place is nowhere. This isn't a city or town. This is fields, trees, snow, wind, sky, but it isn't anything. And then, you know, she thinks about the girl from the Dairy Queen, and she thinks how, you know, school probably isn't a safe place for her. Like, what is it called again? The girl probably doesn't like being there. She's smart and capable, but for various reasons, she prefers leaving school to arriving. School should be a place she likes, where she feels welcome. I bet it's not. That's just my feeling. Maybe I'm reading into things. And then she opens the glove box and starts looking through it, and she just sees a bunch of Kleenexes, some of them with some blood on them, and there's some photographs and some discarded candy wrappers. And then Jake, like, you know, leans into the car and says, "What are you doing?" And then you know, the narrator's like, "Ah, Jesus, Jake, you scared me." And then he asked, what were you doing? You know, it like. What were you doing with the glove box? And then she says, "I was just waiting for you." And then she asks him, what took you so long? And he's like, "I was throwing cups in the you know, garbage." And then she says, "There was a garbage right in front of you." And then he says, "No, that wasn't for garbage. That's for salt. And there was a dumpster in the back. I just had to go like really, really far." And then the narrator says, "I don't like it here." I have no clue what you are doing. You must be freezing. Why is it such a big school out in the middle of nowhere? Anyway, with no houses around. You need to have houses and people and kids if you're gonna have a school. And then Jake says, "The school's old. It's been here forever. That's why it's in such a rough shape. Every kid in a 40-mile radius goes here, or did. What do you mean?" And then the narrator and Jake argue a little bit over, whether the school is, still like operational or not. Jake argues like, it probably is just like, holidays or something. And then narrator argues like, excuse me, that uh, you know it just doesn't look alive. And then he says, why wouldn't there be road salt? And then he also says there was a truck back there. So you're so sadly your theory that the school is derelict and void of life is bunk. Back where? Back behind the school where I found the dumpster. There's a black truck. Really? Yeah, a rusty old black pickup. Maybe it's abandoned. If it's a beater behind an old poopy school way out in the middle of nowhere, this would be an ideal place to trash it. Maybe the best place. And then Jake goes deep in thought, and the narrator finds that when he goes deep in thought, very endearing and comforting. And she's like happy. She's happy that he's here. And then he says the exhaust was dripping, and then she says so, and then he says, so the truck has been driven. Condensation from the exhaust pipe means the engine has been running recently, and it hasn't been sitting there. I think there were tracks in the snow too, but definitely exhaust strips. And then the narrator is losing interest and says, what does that mean anyway, a truck? And then he says, means someone is here, like a worker maybe, I don't know, something like that. Someone's in the school, that's all. And then she says, no, it could be anything. It could be. And then Jake snaps at her and says, no, that's what it is. Someone is here. Someone who wouldn't be here if he didn't have to be. If he would be somewhere else, anywhere else, that's where he would be. And then she says, okay, I'm just saying, I don't know, maybe there was a car and a carpool and the vehicle was left behind or something. And then Jake says, he's in there alone, working a janitor, cleaning up after all those kids. That's what he does all the night. While everyone sleeps, clogged toilets, garbage bags, wasted food, teenage boys piss on a bathroom floor for fun. Think about it. And the narrator thinks about how it must be so, ridiculously hard to keep a building that big clean, and how, the students spend one day there, and then the next, and it's in complete shambles, and then this janitor has to work there all night just to put it back to how it was before, and he has to do that every day. And it seems like it's simply too much for one person to bear. And then she says, anyway, who cares? Let's just go. We're already late as it is. And then Jake says, what's the rush all of a sudden? It's not even midnight. And then she says, what? And then he says, it's not that late, and with the snow, we're already out here. It's kind of nice and private. Let's wait for a bit. And then the narrator is like, no, they're thinking I want to go, but she doesn't want to get into argument. And then she thinks how she should have ended things with Jake, and now she's in this situation. So then she laughs out loud, and then he says, what? And then she says, nothing, it's just. And then he says, just what? And then she says, really, it's nothing, I was just thinking about something funny that happened at work. And then he looks at her like he can't even believe that she could tell such an obvious lie. And then he asks, what did you think of the farm, of my parents? And then the narrator's like, now you ask, after all this time? And then she says, it was fun to see where you grew up. And then he says, do you think it would be like that? How did you picture it? And then she says, I don't know what I thought. I haven't spent much time in the country or on a farm. I don't really have an idea of what it would be like. It was about what I thought, I guess. Sure. Did it surprise you? Why do you think it would surprise me? Why? I'm just curious what you thought. Did it seem like a nice place to grow up? Your parents were sweet. It was kind of them to invite me. I liked your dad's glasses string. He had an old-timey feeling to him. He invited us to stay over. He did? Yeah, he said he'd make coffee. Do they seem happy to you? Your folks? Yeah, I'm curious. I've been wondering about them lately. How happy they are. They've been under stress. I worry about them. They seem fine. Your mom is having a tough time, but your dad is supportive. And then the narrator thinks, were they happy? Like, I'm not even sure if they were happy. They didn't seem explicitly happy. There was that argument, the stuff I heard, the vague bickering. It's hard to say what happy is. Something did seem a little off. Maybe it has to do with Jake's brother. And then Jake puts his hand on her leg and says, I'm glad you came. And then she says, me too. And then he says, really, it means a lot. I've been wanting to see that place for a long time. And then he leans in for a kiss. The narrator isn't expecting it. And they start, like, making out. And the narrator is like, thinking, this, I like this, but I shouldn't be doing it when I'm thinking of ending things. And then he whispers, Steph, and then the narrator stops and she says, what? And what did you say? And then he says nothing. And then the narrator's like keeping thought, like, did he call me Steph? Did he, like, huh? And then he screams, what the F? And then he says, what the F again? And then the narrator says, what? What's wrong? And then he says, poop. And then he said, like I said, there's someone in the school. Sit up, quick, put your shirt on, hurry up. And then she says, what? I don't want to startle you, just sit up, he can see us. He was looking. Jake, what are you talking about? He was staring at us. I can't find my shirt. It's down here on the floor somewhere. When I looked up over your shoulder, I saw someone. It was a man. A man? A man. He was standing at that window there. He wasn't moving or anything. He was just staring right at us, right at the car. He could see us. This is creeping me out, Jake. I don't like this. Why was he looking at us? I don't know, but it's not right. Are you sure there wasn't someone there? I can't see anyone. I'm positive. I saw him. He was staring at us. He was enjoying watching us. It's sick. Relax. Let's just go. Like you said, probably some bored old janitor. He hasn't seen anyone out this late before. That's all. Relax. No, this is effing BS. He wasn't concerned. He wasn't wondering if we were okay. He wasn't bored. He was staring at us. What do you mean? He was leering. It's effed up. Jake, don't go. I don't care. Let's just go. I care. He's an effing pervert. He was doing something. I'm sure of it. That guy's effed up. He liked looking at us. How do you know? I saw him. I know him. Or guys like him, I mean. He should be ashamed of himself. There was a wave or movement in his hand, a wave-like gesture. He knows. Calm down. I don't think he was doing anything. How can you know for sure? I can't just ignore it. I can't. I can see him. Jake, can we please just go? Listen, I'm asking you, please. I'm going to give him poop. He can't do this. What? No, forget it. Let's go. We're going. And then she reaches over to, grab Jake to, hold his hand. And then he just shoves her hand out of the way, not softly, and he's, shaking and, trembling from rage. And then he says, we're not going anywhere until I talk to him. It's not right. And then the narrator thinks, I've literally never seen Jake like this. And then, he pushes her hand away violently. And then she says, Jake, come on, look at me for a second. And then he says, we're not leaving until I talk to him. And then she watches in disbelief as he opens the door. And then she's like, Jake, it's a snowstorm. Get back in the car. Forget it. Jake, just let's go. Let's get out of here. And then he says, wait here. And he doesn't. It's not a suggestion. It's a command. And then without looking back, he slams the door shut. The next little bit of text, once again, they just talk a little bit about, science and, stuff. Narrator, is in her thoughts a lot about, just about Jake's, habits, how he likes his toast and stuff like that. And then, they just talk about, dark matter and, space and stuff. And, just galaxies. And then at the end of this part, we get another end bit which says, some of the rooms were vandalized, I heard. Yup, paint on the floor, red paint, some water damage. Did you know he put a chain on the door? Why did he do it in here?
To make some selfish, twisted point, maybe? I don't know. He wasn't a vandal type, was he? No, but the strange thing is he'd started writing graffiti on some of the walls. We all knew it was him. People saw him doing it. He denied it, but volunteered to clean it off every time. That's weird. That's not even the weird part. The strange thing is that he wrote the same thing every time the graffiti. Just one sentence. What was it? There's only one question we need to resolve. There's only one question we need to resolve? Yup, that's what he wrote. What's the one question? I have no idea. So obviously, now we can link whoever this person is to the caller, because the caller, also says in the message to, the narrator, there's only one question we need to resolve. So obviously, links them together, so they might be the same person.
After that, she says, "What? So stupid," to the empty car. God. And then she watches him march around the side of the school until he's out of sight. And then she's just confused. She thought she knew Jake better. She thought she could predict his moods and reactions. And she says that this seems entirely out of character. His voice, his language, he doesn't usually swear. I had no idea he had a temper. Like, she heard that people had a short fuse and, road rage, but, and things like that. But Jake just had one of those moments. There was nothing I could do or say to bring him back to his senses. He left all on his own, and he wasn't going to listen to me. And then she thinks, I didn't think that Jake was capable of such emotion. And then she thinks, it's actually what I wanted. He's never shown any of it. He's never shown extreme anything. That's why it's so weird. Should have gone with him, or at least suggested it. That might have made him realize how stupid it was to go and storming there. And then she finds her jacket on the floor and puts it back on. And then she thinks she could have tried to relax him, but it happened so fast. And then she thinks, I can understand why it upset him, because they were about to get intimate. But, she was the one with her shirt off, and she just wanted to leave. And so what they should have done is just leave. And then she thinks, Jake saw the guy. And, maybe if I saw a weird man staring at me, I'd lose my temper too. And then she thinks, who is this guy? A janitor? Like Jake suggested? And then she thinks about how, maybe he enjoys the solitude, and maybe he likes how he can just clean the school at his own pace, and he can just do his job. And, he doesn't have to talk to anyone. He just goes there to work. He works the entire night. He doesn't have to deal with any small talk. He doesn't have to see any students. He doesn't have to see how careless and sloppy and messy and dirty they are. But he knows better than anyone because he has to deal with the fallout. And then she thinks, if I could work alone, I think I'd prefer it. I'm almost certain I would. No small talk, no upcoming plans to discuss, no one leaning over your desk to ask you questions. You could just do your work. If I could work, if I could work mostly alone and was still living alone, things would be much easier. Everything would be a little more natural. And then she thinks about a book that Jake gave her called The Loser by a German author. And then Jake tells her it's a sad story. And then Jake underlined one section of the book. To exist means nothing other than we despair. For we don't exist, we get existed. And then she thinks about what this meant. And then she hears an abrupt metal clang from somewhere to her right from the school. And then she turns to the sound, but she can't see anything. She can't see any movement or light. She can't see anything. And then she's like, maybe I just saw movement in the window. I heard something. I can't tell if I saw something. And then she puts her hands up to the vent because she's really cold. Jake turned off the car because Jake turned off the car and took the keys with him without thinking. So now the car is off and she's like freezing inside. And then she hears another loud clang and another, and then her heart is just starts beating faster and faster. And she doesn't like what's happening. She wants to go home. She doesn't like this. She wants this to end. Where's Jake? What's he doing? How long has he been gone? Where are we? And then she thinks about how she likes spending time alone, but right now she'd rather be anything other than alone. She wants to be with Jake, and she wishes that they were just leaving right now. And then she hears a fourth bang, and it's the loudest yet, and it's almost definitely coming from inside the school. And then she thinks, this is stupid. It's Jake who has to work in the morning, not me. Why did I agree to this? I shouldn't have come with him. I should have ended things long ago. How did I end up here? I shouldn't have agreed to visit his parents, to visit the house he grew up in. Well, that wasn't fair. But I was curious. I should be home, reading, sleeping. It wasn't right. It wasn't the right time. I should be in bed. I knew Jake and I weren't gonna last. I did. I knew from the beginning. Now I'm sitting in this stupid freezing car. I open the door. More cold rushes in, and then she screams, Jake! No answer. How long has it been? 10 minutes? Longer? Shouldn't he be back by now? It happened so fast. He was obsessed with confronting the man. Does that mean talking to him or yelling or fighting? What's the point? It's almost like Jake's upset about something else or something I'm not aware of. Maybe I should go in and look for him. I can't wait here in the car forever. And then she says she doesn't care if he's mad. He shouldn't have left her in the middle of the car, in the middle of effing nowhere. It's really unfair and poopy. And she, like, does he just expect her to sit here? There's literally nothing. There's nothing she can do. So then she finds Jake's woolen hat, and then she puts it on and gets out. She's now outside in the cold, and she is like shivering because she's really cold. She tries to follow Jake's like footsteps, and she calls out, Jake, 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 and she can't find him. And then she keeps on going, and it's so cold. And then she sees something move at the end of the hall, inside the school, and she's like, is it Jake? And then she's like, no, I don't think it is. Jake was right. Someone's in there. And then she ducks down away from the window. Her heart almost explodes. And then she looks back in. There is someone, a man, a very tall figure. There's something dangling from his arm. He's facing this way. He's not moving. I don't think he can see me. Not from so far away. Why isn't he moving? What's he doing? He's just standing there, motionless. It's a broom or a mop he's holding. I want to stare, but suddenly I'm too scared. And then she talks about how she could ask him for help, but she's too scared. She feels like she's underwater, weighed down, helpless. She feels her pulse jumping. And she's like, maybe he can help me. Maybe I should ask him where Jake is. And then she waits 20 seconds. She looks back out, and then he's still there, mopping in the same spot. And then she wants to yell, "What have you done with Jake?" And then she thinks, why would I do that? How do I know if he's done anything to Jake? I need to keep still, quiet. I'm too scared. He's a tall, skinny figure. I can't see clearly enough. The hall is long. He looks old, maybe stoop-shouldered. He's wearing dark blue pants, I think. A dark shirt too. Looks like work clothes. What's on his hands? Yellow gloves? Rubber gloves? The yellow extends halfway up his forearms. There's something on his head. I can't see his face. It's a mask. I shouldn't look. I should stay down, hidden. I should be looking for a way out of this. I'm sweating. I can feel it on my neck, my back. He's holding the mop. He might be moving it to the floor now. I'm squinting hard. He's moving, almost like he's dancing with the mop. And then she leans back against the wall. And then she looks again, and he's gone. Wait, no, he's not gone. He's there. He's on the floor. He's lying face down on the floor. His arms are tucked along his sides. He's just lying there. His head might be moving from side to side, up and down a bit, too, maybe. I don't like this. Is he crawling? Yes, he is. He's crawling, slithering down the hall, off to his right. And then she thinks, this isn't good. I have to find Jake. We have to get out of here. It's time to leave. This is seriously wrong. And then she runs, screaming, Jake. And then she smells a really, distinct antiseptic chemical cleaning product smell, which, reminds her that she has a headache, and the headache comes back. And then she says, hello? And then she says, Jake. And then she just keeps on looking for him. She walks past a bunch of hallways and classrooms until eventually she opens. She just keeps on going, just yelling, Jake, hello, is anyone there? Hello? And then eventually she sees a door that's open, and then she walks in. She says hello, and then she sees a silver bucket with grayish water in it, and then she says, there's something familiar about this room. I knew it before I got in here. The bucket's the kind of, on four wheels. There's no mop. And then she thinks about calling for Jake again, but she doesn't. and then she starts looking around the room, which doesn't feel like a room anymore. It feels like a large closet, and it's mostly empty. There's a calendar. There's a drain. There's a table. There's no chair though. There's a closet, and she says it's not elaborate. It looks like it's just a tall closet. It looks like a coffin standing on its end. And then she carefully steps past the drain, and then she sees a bunch of pictures on the walls and a dirty.
My hair.
I hate you. Sorry, we just experienced some technical difficulties, some outside interference. I am back. So she saw a dirty coffee cup on the table, a set of silverware, a plate, a microwave on the desk, and she looks at the pictures. There's a man and a woman, a couple, or maybe brother and sister. They look alike. The man is old. He's much taller than the woman. He has straight gray hair. They both have long faces. Neither is smiling. Neither looks happy or sad. They're stiff, expressionless. It's an odd photo display on a wall. Someone's parents, maybe? A few of the pictures are of a man. He doesn't seem aware that his picture is being taken, or if he does, he's reluctant. The top of his head isn't in the photo. It's cut out of the frame. In one, he's sitting at the desk, the one that could very well be this desk that I'm staring at, and he's leaning away, covering his face behind his hand. The quality isn't very good. All the pictures are blotchy, faded. This must be him, the man Jake saw, the one that I saw in the hall. Then she sees in the middle of the desk. She can't even believe she didn't see it first. It's a small cloth, like a rag, crumpled into a ball. And then she picks it up, and it's very clean and soft, like it's been washed 100 times, maybe even thousands of times. And then she realizes, no, this isn't a rag at all. And then she unravels it, and she sees that it's a little shirt for a child. It's light blue with white polka dots. One of the sleeves is ripped. I turn it over. There's a tiny paint stain on the middle of the spine. I drop it. I know this shirt. The polka dots, the paint stain. I recognize it. I have the same one. This was my shirt, but it couldn't be my shirt. But is it? But when I was a kid, I'm sure of it. How did it end up here? On the other side of the desk, there is a small video camera. It's attached to the back of a TV with 2 cables. Hello, I say. I pick up the camera. It's old and still fairly light. I look at the TV and push the power button. It's static. I want to leave. I don't like this. I want to go home. Hey! I yell. Jake. I carefully put the camera back down to the desk. I try the play button. The screen flickers. It's not just static anymore. I lean in towards the TV. The shot of a room, a wall. I can hear something in the shot. I find the volume button on the TV and I turn it up, and loud. It's like humming or something and breathing. Is it breathing? It's this room. It's the desk I'm standing in. I recognize the wall, the photos, and the desk. The shot moves down now, lower to the floor. The image starts moving, leaves out the door, travels along the hall. I can hear the slow steps of a person filming, steps like rubber boots on a tile floor. The pace is melodical, deliberate. The camera enters a large room, which appears to be the school's library. It moves purposefully, straight ahead, through the rows of communal books, desks, shelves. There are windows at the back. It goes all the way back to the windows. There are long floor-to-ceiling horizontal blinds. The camera stops, stays very still, and continues recording. A hand or something just out of frame. One of the blinds moves one of the blinds slightly to the left. They jingle. The camera moves up and looks through the window. Outside is a truck. That's the old pickup truck. The shot zooms in on the truck. It draws in closer, shakier. The quality zoomed in like this isn't great. It looks like somebody sitting in the truck, sitting in the driver's seat. It almost looks like Jake. Is that Jake? No, it can't be. But it really looks like the shot ends abruptly, back to a loud fit full of static. It startles me and I have to jump. I have to get out of here. Now. She starts walking as fast as she can back towards the door that she came in through. She doesn't care. She doesn't know where Jake is, but she needs to get help for him. She'll run back to the town. She doesn't care if it takes her all night. She doesn't care if she freezes to death. She needs to talk to someone. Maybe she can get on the main road and wave someone down. There has to be someone out there somewhere. And then she just keeps on walking, and she says that I can't walk as fast as I want to. It feels like I'm walking through wet mud. And then she keeps on walking, and then she gets to the end with the door that she came in through, and she sees that there is a metal chain on the door. She realizes that somebody's locked the school from within. And then she yells, "Who's in here? Who's here? Hey, Jake, please!" And then she doesn't. And then she silence. She doesn't feel well. This isn't right. And then she looks out the window. The black pickup is still there. And then she looks over. She looks over at where Jake's car should be, and it's gone. Jake's car isn't there anymore. And then she says, "Who's here? Hey, what do you want?" And then she finds a piece of paper on the ground. It's stuck in one of the loops of the metal chain. And she unfolds this piece of paper, and it says in a single line of messy handwriting, "There are more than 1 million violent crimes in America every year. But what happens in this school?" She drops the paper and steps away from it. A deep fear and panic runs through her, and she thinks he's done something with Jake, and now he's after me. I need to get away from this place. I have to stop yelling. I need to hide. I shouldn't be yelling or making noise. He'll know where I am. No, right here. He'll know I'm right here. He'll know where I am. Can he see me right now? I need to find somewhere else to go. Not out in this open hall. A room, a desk to hide. I hear something. Steps, slow, rubber boots on the ground. The sound's coming from the other hall. I need to hide now. I run away from the steps. Left down the hall. I go through a set of double doors in the large room, with glowing vending machines at the back, and long tables, cafeteria. There's a stage in front of the room. There is a single door at the far side. I run past the tables and through the door. It opens into a stairway. I need to keep going farther away. My only option is to go up. I need to be quiet as I climb. But there's an echo. I'm not sure if he's following. I stop halfway up the stairs and listen. I can't hear anything. There are no windows in the stairwell. I can still smell that same smell, the chemical smell. It's even stronger here. My head hurts. Once I reach the landing, I'm sweating more. It's pouring off me. I unzip my jacket. There's a door to my right, or I can climb the stairs to a third floor. I try the door; it's unlocked, and I go through. The door closes behind me. Another hall of lockers and classrooms. There's a water fountain directly to my left. I didn't realize how thirsty I am. I bend down and take a sip. I splash some water onto my face, and some around the back of my neck. I'm out of breath. The hall up here looks very much like the one downstairs. These halls, this school, it's all one big maze. It's a trap. Music starts playing through the PA system. It's not loud. An old country song. I know it. Hey, Good Lookin'. The same song that radio station was playing in the car when Jake and I were driving to the farm. The same one. There's a long bench on the side of the hall. I get down to my knees and half lie, half crouch behind it on my side. I'm mostly hidden here. The floor is hard. I can see if anyone comes through the door. I'm watching the door. The song plays until the end. And then there's a second or two break, and then it plays from the beginning. I cover my ears, but I can still hear it. The same song. I'm trying, but I can't hold it any longer. I start to cry. At this point, she's thinking, before tonight, when anyone asked me about the scariest thing that happened to me, I told them the same story. I told them about Miss Feel. And she talks about how most people seem bored and disappointed when they hear the story because the story isn't like a movie. It's not heart-stopping or intense or blood-curdling or graphic or violent. And she says to me, these qualities aren't scary. Something that disorients, something that unsettles what's taken for granted, something that disturbs and disrupts reality. That's scary. And then she describes the Miss Feel incident. Miss Feel was a friend of her mom's, and she would very often talk to her on the phone, and sometimes the narrator would pick up the phone and then hear Miss Feel and was unsettled by her voice. And then Miss Feel would often call her mom just to talk about her problems and talk about what's wrong with her, and the narrator says Miss Feel had a cast on her right hand. I remember Mom saying there's always something wrong with Miss Feel, a tense or bandage on her wrist or a brace on her knee. And then the first time she met Miss Feel was when she was 7 in her kitchen. Her face was the way I'd pictured her voice on the phone, sharp and old. She had curly reddish brown hair. Then what is it called again? Her her mom and Miss Field would exchange food to each other. So, they both gave each other food. And then the narrator is it had stayed home from school because they were sick with a fever. So they were just sitting in the corner of the room eating some toast, and they were afraid of Miss Field just not moving at all. And then eventually the mom left to go to the bathroom or something. And then Miss Field stopped what she was doing and just looked at the narrator and said, "Are you good or are you bad? If you give up, you're bad. If you're good, you can have a cookie. If you're bad, then maybe you'll have to come live with me instead of living here in this house with your parents." And then the narrator is petrified. And then Miss Field says, "You shouldn't be so shy. You have to get over that." And then the narrator is just humiliated. Like she feels like, humiliated talking to other people when having to explain or discuss the smallest trivialities. And she had trouble meeting people and had a hard time making eye contact. So she just put her crust down and said, "Good." And then Miss Field said, "What about, and what am I? What does your mom tell about me? What does she say?" And then she smiled in a way I've never seen before. It stretched across her face like a wound. Her fingers were shiny and greasy. When my mom came back in the room, Miss Field began transferring more fat from Mom's jar to her own. She gave no indication we'd been talking. That night, Mom had food poisoning. She was up all night, vomiting, crying. I couldn't sleep and heard the whole thing. It was her. It was Miss Field's cookies that made Mom sick. I know it. Mom later said it was a fluke stomach issue, but I know the truth. Mom and I ate the same thing for dinner, and I wasn't sick. And this was no flu. Mom was fine by morning, a little dehydrated. But back to herself. If it was food poisoning, she'd eaten a cookie. I hadn't. And then she talks about how you can never know, what other people are what other people are thinking about. You don't know what their motivations are. You don't know what they do. You don't know why they do it. And she talks about how this is terrifying. And she says it's amazing that relationships can form and last even under the constraints of never fully knowing, never knowing for sure what the other person is thinking, never knowing for sure who the other person is. We can't do whatever we want. There are ways we have to act. There are things we have to say, but we can think any way we want. Anyone can think anything. Thoughts are the only reality. It's true, I'm sure of it now. Thoughts are never faked or bluffed. This is a simple realization that has stayed with me. It has bothered me for years and years. It still does. Are you good or are you bad? What scares me most is I still don't know the answer. She then says, "I stayed behind the bench for probably an hour. It could have been much longer. I'm not sure. How long is an hour? A minute? A year?" My hip and knee went numb from the way I was positioned. I had to contort myself in a natural way. I have lost track of time. Of course, you lose track of time when you're alone. Time always passes. The song kept replaying, "Hey, good looking," over and over, 20 or 30 or 100 times. It might have gotten louder too. And an hour is the same as 2 hours. An hour is the same as forever. It's very hard to know. It's only just stopped. It stopped halfway through a verse. I hate that song. I hate the way I had to listen to it. I didn't want to listen, but now I know all the words by heart. When it stopped, it shocked me. It woke me up. I'd been lying down using Jake's hat as a pillow. She decides to keep on moving because she feels like a target here. She says that you never think you're going to be in a situation like this, being watched, stalked, held captive alone. Hear about these things, you read about them. You feel like the possibility of someone being able to inflict this type of terror on another person, like how is that even possible? What's wrong with people? Why do people do these things? Why do people end up in these situations? The possibility of evil shocks you, but you aren't the target, so it's okay. You forget about it. You move on. It's not happening to you. It's happened to someone else. Until now, I stand up trying to ignore my fear. I creep down the hall silently, moving away from the bench, away from the stairwell I came up. I try a few doors. Everything's locked. No exit from this place. The halls are bleak. There's nothing on the walls. No sign of student existence. I've been down these halls so many times. They repeat themselves, turn in upon themselves like an Escher drawing. When you think about it like this, it's almost grotesque that some people spend so much time here. And then she talks about how all the garbage cans she's found are clean and empty. There's no waste in them. She checks every one, hoping that she can find something, like anything to help her move forward, help her escape. But all of them are just empty. They're just empty black bags. And then she makes her way to the science wing, and then she wonders, have I been here before? And she sees that the doors are different in this hall. and she sees that there is a large advertisement about winter formal. It's the first sign of student existence that she's seen. And then she says, "I think I hear rubber boots from footsteps somewhere." And then she says, "It's like I've been given a drug. I can't move. I shouldn't move. I'm incapacitated with fear, frozen. I want to turn and scream, but I can't. What if it's Jake? What if he's here, locked in with me? If he were here, it'd mean I'm not alone, and that I would be safe." And then she gets back to the stairwell. Her heart is thumping, thinking maybe Jake's here. But then she hears the boots, and she realizes, no, it's not Jake, it's him again. And then she darts into the hallway, and then she just feels like she feels like he could be hiding in her shadow, waiting. She just doesn't know. I just don't know. She goes upstairs and she sees an art room, and it's a different hallway and the door isn't locked. She goes inside and she feels relief because it's finally something different. And then the first thing she does is she runs over to a phone and tries to dial 911, but nothing happens. It's hopeless. And then she rummages through a bunch of drawers and finds a plastic retractable X-Acto knife, but the blade has been removed. So she drops it on the ground. And then she wonders how long can she stay here? How long can a person live without essentials? With no food, no water. And she thinks, staying hidden like this, it's too passive. I need to be active. And then she checks the window. The bottom of the window opens, but only enough to let in a little air. If there was a ledge or something, maybe out there, I'd consider jumping. Maybe. I open the window, the full couple inches. The cold air feels good on my hands. I leave my hand there, feeling the breeze. And then she thinks about how she used to love art class, even though she wasn't any good at it. She desperately wanted to be. She didn't want to just be competent and successful in math. She wanted to be, good at art too, but she couldn't be. And she said high school was such a strange time for me. For some people, it's a peak. I did the work and got the marks. That wasn't the issue. But all the socializing, the parties, the attempts to fit in, that wasn't easy. Even then, by the end of the days, I just wanted to get home. I was unremarkable in the ways that I mattered in school. It was the worst type of oblivion. For years, I was scentless, invisible, adulthood, late blooming. That's me. Or it was supposed to be. That's when it'd finally get better. I'd get better then, everyone said. This is where I'd start coming into my own. I've been so careful, so aware, so I'm confused less. I haven't been reckless. I understand myself, my own limitless potential. There's so much potential. And now this? How did I get here? It's not fair. And Jake? It's not going to work out between us. It's not sustainable, but that's irrelevant now. He'll be fine without me, won't he? He's coming into his own. He'll do something big someday. I know. He doesn't need me. His family doesn't need me either. They aren't my kind of people, but that doesn't matter. They've been through a lot. I probably don't even know the half of it. They probably think we're back home. They're probably sound asleep. This is not the end. It doesn't have to be. I need to find him, and then I can back out, start again, try again, begin at the beginning. Jake can't too. And then she feels really tired and she wants to go to sleep. And then she's like, no, I can't sleep. And then she hits her foot against a bottle of paint, and then she picks it up, and then she sees that this is fresh paint. This wasn't there before. He was here. He was right here recently. And then her hands are covered in the red paint, and then she sees some more red paint on the floor, and it's writing in small letters, and she says, "I know what you're going to do." And she thinks, a message for me. He wanted me to come in here and see it. That's why this door is open. He led me here. I don't know what this means, what I do. He saw me and Jake. He saw Jake kissing my neck. He saw us in the car. He was at the window watching. Is that it? He knew we were going to do it in the car. He didn't want us to get intimate. Is that it? There's more writing on the ground. Just you and me now. There's only one question. The terror fills me. Absolute terror. No one knows what it's like. Can't know. You don't know you've been unless you've been alone like this, like I am. I never knew until now. How does he know? How does he know the question? He can't know what I've been thinking. He can't. No one can ever really know what somebody else is thinking. This can't be real. The pain in my head is getting worse. I bring a trembling hand to my forehead. I'm so tired. I'm not doing well. I can't stay here. I have to keep moving. I have to hide. Get away. How does he know where I am or where I'm going? He'll be back. I know it. She thinks about how she wishes this were more supernatural, like a ghost story, something more surreal, something from the imagination. Because no matter how vile that ghost story would be, it would be so much less terrifying. It'd be so much harder to perceive and accept if there was room for doubt. But this is too real. It's a dangerous man with bad irreversible intentions in a big empty school. It's my own fault. I should have never come here. It's not a nightmare. I wish it were. I wish I could just wake up. I'd give anything to be in my old bed, in my old room. I'm alone, and someone wants to hurt me or hunt me, and he's already done something to Jake. I know it. And then she decides that, you know, maybe if she gets to the gym, she can there's going to be like an emergency door or something that she can, you know, get through. And then she realizes that she's been biting off her nails and chewing them and eating them, and she's also started losing hair. And then she wonders maybe it's the stress, and then she puts her hand up to her head, and then she, like, you know, gently, like, pulls her hair, and there is like almost an entire fistful of hair in her hand now. And then she thinks, I have to stay quiet, stay calm. In the hall, the bricks are painted. Keep moving slowly, and then sweat drips down her spine. She finally makes it to the gym. She opens it just enough to get through, and then she sees, she slips through, and then a very very strong smell, a chemical smell, hits her, and her eyes start to water. And now she hears something in the boys' locker room, and she goes there. Because she wants to, like, she hears some, like, water or something, because she wants to, like, and she goes there because she wants to drink the water and wash her hands. And then she washes her hands, and then she looks at her streaked red, trembling hands, and she realizes that her right thumbnail is gone. And then she realizes there's an opening up ahead to my left. That's where the sound of the water was coming from. And then she trips on something, and she picks it up. It's a shoe, Jake's shoe. And then she wants to yell out, but she can't. She covers her mouth. She has to be quiet. And then she looks down and she sees another shoe. She picks it up, and then she keeps on. And then she sees Jake's shoe. And then she peeks around the corner. No one. I bend down and look under the stalls. No legs. I'm holding a shoe in each hand. I take a step closer. Now I see the bank of the taps. No running water. I move toward the showers. One of the silver shower heads is on full blast. Only one. There's lots of steam. It must be hot water, very hot. Jake, I whisper. I need to think, but it's so warm here, humid, steam all around me. I need to figure out how to get out of here. There's no point in trying to figure out why he's doing this or who he is. That doesn't matter. None of it matters. She thinks that if she can make it out of the school, she'll run. She'll just keep on. She'll make it to the main road, and then she'll run. She'll keep on running. It doesn't matter if her lungs burn and her legs are jelly. She won't stop. She'll run as fast and far away as possible. She'll get away from here, somewhere different, somewhere where life is possible, somewhere where, you know, everything isn't so old. And then she thinks, or maybe I can just last in here alone. Maybe much longer than I can think. Maybe I can find new places to hide, to blend into the walls. Maybe I could stay in here, live here in a corner under a desk in the locker rooms. And then she thinks someone is there at the end of the showers. And then she sees Jake's wet clothes balled up. And then she thinks, an emergency exit. I need one now. She leaves the changing room, and then the speakers start playing the same song again. The speakers are everywhere, but I can't see them. Does it ever stop? I think so. I'm not sure anymore. Maybe the same song has been playing this whole time. She thinks, I know people talk about the opposites of truth and the opposites of love. What is the opposite of fear? The opposites of unease and panic and regret. I'll never know why we came to this place. How I ended up confined like this. How I ended up so alone. It wasn't supposed to happen to this like this. Why me? I sit down on the hard floor. There's no way out. There's no way out of this gym. No way out of this school. There never was. I want to think about nice things, but I can't. I cover my ears. I'm crying. There's no way out. She thinks to herself that she's been walking and crawling around this school forever. And she says that you know, that people think that there's perception of fear and dread are like fleeting, that they hit hard and fast and then they go away. But this isn't true. They don't fade unless they're replaced by something else. Deep fear will stay and spread if it can. You can't outrun or outsmart it or subdue it. Untreated, it will only fester. Fear is a rash. And then she tries to imagine herself in a room with her nice chair and her nice books and her just, you know, all of her stuff. She tries to focus on, like, you know, her brown teapot. There's a chip in her spout. There's the chip in the spout of the brown teapot. She bought it for $1 years and years ago. If she just focuses on the room, it's real and she's safe. And she has a candle, and she got it from her parents. She's never lit it. It's a big red candle in the shape of an elephant, with the wick coming out of the elephant's back, and she thought that she'd eventually burn the candle when there's an occasion special enough, but she never did, because whenever she felt like there was an occasion special enough, she felt like she was settling. So she would wait for a better occasion. It's still there, unlit, on top of the bookcase. There was never an occasion special enough. How could that be? And then for the first time in a good while, we get another N bit. He'd been working at the school for more than 30 years. No previous incidents, nothing in his file. Nothing? That's unusual, too. More than 30 years at one job, at one school? Lived out in an old place. I think it was originally his parents' farmhouse. They both died a long time ago, so I'm told. Everyone I talked to says he was quite gentle. He just didn't seem to know how to talk to people, couldn't relate to them, or didn't try. I don't think he was interested in socializing. He took lots of breaks out, and in his truck, he'd just go sit in his pickup at the back of the road. That was his break. And what about his hearing? He had cochlear implants. His hearing had become pretty bad. He had allergies to certain foods, milk, dairy, and he had a delicate constitution. He didn't like to go down to the school's boiler room in the basement. He'd always ask somebody else to go if there was work to be done down there. Strange. And all those notebooks and diaries and books, always his nose in a book. I remember seeing him in one of the science labs after school had ended. He was just standing there looking at nothing. I watched him for a bit and then went into another classroom. He didn't notice me. He wasn't cleaning as he should have been. He had no reason to be in there, so I very gently asked him what he was doing. There was a moment before he replied. Then he turned and calmly put a finger on his mouth and shh me. I couldn't believe it. Very strange. Before I could say anything else, he said, "I don't want to hear the clock." Then he walked by me and left. I'd forgotten about it all until this happened. If he was so smart, you wonder, why was he pushing a mop for so long? Why didn't he do something else? You have to interact with coworkers in most jobs. You can't just sit in your truck. Still a school custodian? That's what I don't understand. If he wanted to be alone, then why did he work in a job where he was surrounded by people? Wouldn't that kind of be like self-torture? Yeah, come to think of it, I guess it probably would. On my hands and knees, crawling along what I think is the music room, blood drips from my nose onto the floor. I'm not in the room. I'm in a narrow hall on the outside. There are windows in the room. My head is thumping, on fire. There are many red chairs and black music stands. There is no order. I can't get Jake's parents out of my mind. How his mom hugged me. She didn't want to let me go. She looked so poorly by the end. She was worried, scared, not for us, not for herself, but for us. Maybe she knew. I think she knew. I'm thinking a million thoughts. I'm feeling disoriented, confused. He asked me what I thought about them. Now I know what I think. It's not that they weren't happy together, but that they were stuck together, stuck out there. There was an underlying resentfulness from each other. With me being there, it was best behavior time, but they couldn't fully hide the truth. Something had took them. I'm thinking of childhood memories. I can't stop myself. These moments of childhood haven't been thought about in years or ever. I can't focus. I can't keep people straight. I'm thinking about everyone. We're just talking, Jake said. We're communicating, I replied. We're thinking. When I was resting, I scratched the back of my head with my hand. I felt a bald spot about the size of a quarter. I pulled out more hair. Hair isn't alive. All those visible cells have already died. It's dead, lifeless. When we touch it, cut it, and style it, we see it, we touch it, we clean it, we care for it, but it's dead. My hands still have red on them. Now it's my heart. I'm angry with it. The constant beating. We're wired to be unaware of it. Why am I aware of it now? Why is the beating making me angry? Because I don't have a choice. When you're aware of your heartbeat, you just don't want to hear it. You just want to hear it stop beating. You need a break from the constant rhythm, a rest. We all need a rest. The most important things are perpetually overlooked. Until something like this, then they are impossible to ignore. What does that say? We're mad at these limits and needs. Human limits and fragility. You can only be alone. You can't only be alone. Everything's both ethereal and clunky. So much to depend upon. So much fear. So many requirements. What's day? A night. There's grace in doing the right thing, in making a human decision. We always have the right choice. Every day we all do. For as long as we live, we always have the choice. Everyone we meet has the choice to consider over and over and over. We try to ignore it, but there's only one question for us all. We think the end of this hall leads back to one of the large halls with all those lockers. We've been everywhere. There's nowhere else to go. It's the same old school, the same one as always. We can't go back upstairs. We can't. We tried. We really tried. We did our best. How long can we suffer? We sit here. Here. We're sitting here. Sitting. Of course we're uncomfortable. We have to be. I knew it. I know it. I said it myself. I'm going to say something that will upset you now. I know what you look like. I know your feet and your hands and your skin. I know your head and your hair and your heart. You shouldn't bite your nails. I know I shouldn't. I know. We're sorry. We remember now. The painting. It's still in our pockets. The painting Jake's mom gave to us. The portrait of Jake that was meant to be a surprise. We'll hang it on the wall with the other pictures. We take it out of our pockets, slowly unfold it. We don't want to look, but we have to. It took a long time to paint it. Hours, days, years, minutes, seconds. The face is looking there at us. All of us are in there. Distorted, blurry, fragmented, explicit, and unmistakable. Paint on my hands. The face is definitely mine. The man, it's recognizable in the way all self-portraits are. It's me, Jake. Are you good? Are you? There's grace in doing the right thing. And making a choice, isn't there? Dancing the night away. Tickets are $10. What are you waiting for? 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 We've gone back in the custodian's room. It was inevitable. We understand that now. It's what we knew would happen. There was no other option. After all, it's all there is. We passed the woodworking and auto classrooms. We went by a door that read dance studio. There was another that read student council. We saw the drama department. We didn't try any of those doors. What's the point? We've all been walking by these doors and these floors for years. After all this time, even the dust is familiar. We don't care if they're clean. The custodian's room is ours. It's where we're meant to be. In the end, we can't deny who we are, who we were, where we've been. Who we want to be doesn't matter when there's no way to get out of here. We passed the door to the basement. This is who we are. Fingernails, fistfuls of hair, blood on our own hands. We saw the photos, the man. We understood. We do. We wish it wasn't true. Whoever works here, the custodian, he's not in here. We realize as we look at his face in the photo, he's not here anymore. He's already gone. It's us. We're here now. With Jake, just us. Us all alone, in the car. We never saw the man in the school. The custodian, only Jake saw him. He wanted to follow him into the school to go looking for him. He wanted to be here with us, with no way out. Jake's shoes in the locker room, he took them off. He took them off himself and left them in the gym. He put on the rubber boots. It was him all along. It was Jake, the man, because he is Jake. We are. We can't hold it in any longer. The tears come. Tears again. His brother. The story about his brother being the troubled one, we think that's made up. That's why his dad was so happy when we were visiting. That we'd been kind to Jake. He was the troubled one. Jake, not his brother. There is no brother. There should have been, but there wasn't. And Jake's parents, they died a long time ago. Like the hair we can see, the hair grows, the hair that grows on our head, the hair that falls out, it's already dead a long time ago. Jake once told me, sometimes a thought is closer to the truth, to reality, than an action. You can say anything, you can do anything, but you can't fake a thought. Jake is beyond help now. He tried, help never came. Jake knew we were going to end it. Somehow he knew. We never told him. We were the only ones thinking about it, but he knew. He didn't want to be alone. He couldn't face it. The music starts again from the beginning, louder this time. It doesn't matter. The small closet behind the desk is empty. We push all the empty wire hangers to one side and step in. It's hard to breathe. It will be better in here. We'll stay in here. Wait. The music stops. It's quiet. Pure silence. This is where we'll stay until it's time. It's Jake. It was Jake. We're in here together. All of us. Movements, actions, they can be misled or disguised in truth. Actions are, by definitions, acted, performed. They are abstractions. Actions are constructions, allegory, elaborate metaphor. We don't understand or recognize significance and validity through experience. We accept, reject, and discern through examples. That night long ago when we met at a pub, the song was playing that night. He was listening to his team chat and discuss questions, but not talking at all. He was part of it. He was engaged, he was thinking. And maybe he was enjoying himself. He was taking small sips of beer. He was sort of sniffing the back of his hand, off and on, absent-mindedly, one of the tics he developed when he concentrated on something, when he was relaxed. It was so rare to be relaxed in this kind of setting, but he'd actually made it out, away from his room, to the pub with other people. That was difficult and significant. And the girl, she, he, we, me, she was sitting beside him. She was pretty and talkative. She laughed a lot. She was comfortable in her own skin. He desperately wanted to say hello to her. She even smiled at him. For sure, it was a smile, empirically, no question. That was real, and he smiled back. She had kind eyes. He remembers her. She sat beside him and didn't move away. She was smart and funny. She was at ease. "You guys are doing pretty well," is what she said. And she smiled. That was the first thing she said to Jake, to us. "You guys are doing so well." He held up his beer glass. "We're helpfully fortified." They talked a bit more. He wrote his number on his napkin. He wanted to give it to her. He couldn't. He couldn't do it. He didn't. It would have been nice to see her again, even just to talk, but he never did. He thought he might run into her. He hoped that kind of chance existed. It might have been easier the second time. That way it might have progressed, but he never had the chance. It never happened. He never had to make it happen. He had to make it happen. He had to think about her. Thoughts are real. He wrote them about us, about them, about us. Would anything be different if she had his number? If she'd been able to call him? If they only talked on the phone, met again? If he'd ask her out, would he have stayed at the lab? Would they have gone on a road trip together? Would they have kissed him? Would they have entered a relationship? 2 instead of 1. If things had gone well, would she have visited him in the house that he was raised? They could have stopped for ice cream on the way home, no matter the weather, together, but we never did. Would any of it make a difference? Yes, no, maybe. It doesn't matter. It didn't happen. The burden is not hers. She would have forgotten so soon after the first night, that single brief meeting in the pub. She doesn't even know we exist anymore. The onus is ours alone. That was so long ago. Years. It was inconsequential to her and everyone else, except us. So much has happened since then. With us, Jake's parents, the girls of the Dairy Queen, Mrs. Veal. We're all in here. In this school, nowhere else, all part of the same thing. We had to try putting her with us to see what could happen. It was her story to tell. To hear the steps again, the boots, slow steps, far, far away still. They're coming this way. They will get louder. He's taking his time. He knows we have nowhere to go. He knew all along. Now he's coming. The steps are getting louder. People talk about the ability to endure anything and everything, to keep going, to be strong. But you can only do that when you're not alone. That's the infrastructure life's built on, a closeness with others. Alone, it becomes a struggle of mere endurance. And what can we do when there's no one else? When we try to sustain fully on our own? What do we do when we've always been alone? When there's no one else, ever? What does life mean then? Does it mean anything? What is a day then? A week? A year? A lifetime? What is a lifetime? It all means something else. We have to try another way, another option. They're the only other option. It's not that we can't accept or acknowledge love and empathy, not that we can't experience it, but with whom? When there is no one. So we come back to this decision, to the question. It's the same one. In the end, it's up to us all. What do we decide to do? Continue or not? Go on, or are you good or are you bad? It was the wrong question. It was always the wrong question. No one can answer that. The caller knew it from the beginning, without even thinking. I knew it. I did. There's only one question, and we all needed her help to answer. We decide not to think about our heartbeat. Interaction, connection is compulsory. It's something we need. Solitude won't sustain itself forever until it does. We can never be the best kisser alone. Maybe that's how we know when a relationship is real. When someone else, previously unconnected to us, knows us in a way never thought to be believed possible. I hold my hand over my mouth and muffle my own sound. My hand is shaking. I don't want to feel anything. I don't want to see him. I don't want to hear anything anymore. I don't want to see. It's not nice. I've made the decision. There's no other way. It's too late. After what has happened for all this time, all these years, maybe if I offered her the napkin at the number, with my number at the pub, maybe if I'd been able to talk to her, maybe it wouldn't have happened like this. But I didn't. I couldn't. He's at the door. He's standing there. He did this. He brought us here. It's always him. Only him. I reach out and touch the door, waiting. Another step closer. There's no rush. There is a choice. We all have a choice. What holds this together? What gives life significance? What gives it shape and depth? In the end, it comes for us all. So why do we wait for it instead of making it happen? What am I waiting for? I'd wish I'd done better. I wish I'd done more. I close my eyes, tears slip. I hear the boots, the rubber boots, Jake's boots, my boots, out there and here. He stands at the door, creaks open. We're together. Him, me, us, at last. What if it doesn't get better? What if death is an escape? What if the maggots continue to feed and feed and feed and continue to be felt? I hold my hands behind my back and look at him. He's wearing something on his head and face. He's wearing the yellow rubber gloves. I want to look away to close my eyes. He takes a step forward towards me. He gets close enough that I can reach and touch him. I can hear him breathing under the mask. I can smell him. I know what he wants. He's ready for the end. He's ready. Critical balance is needed for everything. Our temperature-controlled incubators in which we grow large volumes, more than 20 liters of yeast, E. coli cultures, and they have been genetically engineered to overexpress a protein of our choosing. When we choose to bring the end closer, we create a new beginning. It's all the extra mass that we can't see that makes the formation of galaxies and rotational velocities of stars around galaxies mathematically possible. He lifts the bottom of the mask off his chin and mouth. I can see the stubble on his chin, his chapped, cracked lips. I put a hand on his shoulder. I have to concentrate to keep my hand from shaking. We're all here now. We're all here together now, all of us. One day on Venus is like 115 days on Earth. It's the brightest object in the sky. He puts a metal hanger from the closet into my hand. I'm thinking of ending things, he says. I straighten it out and bend it in half so both pointy ends stick in the same direction. I'm sorry for everything, I say. I'm sorry, I think. You can do this. You can help me now. He's right. I have to. We have to help. That's why we're here. I bring my right hand around and I jam it in as hard as I can. Twice in and out. Once more, in and out. I slam the ends into my neck, upward, under my chin, with all my strength, and then I fall on my side. More blood. Something. Spit. Blood. Bubbles from my mouth. So many punctures. It hurts. All of it. But we feel nothing. It's done now, and I'm sorry. I look at my hands. One is shaking. I try to steady one with another. I slump back into the closet. A single unit. Back to one. Me, only me, Jake, alone again. I decided I had to. No more thinking. I answered the question. Let me get another end bit. There's one thing I wanted to ask you about the note. What? The note near his body. I was told there was a note. You heard about it? Yes. It wasn't much more of a note. It was, well, detailed. Some kind of diary, maybe, or a story. I mean, he wrote about characters, or maybe they were people he knew, but then he's in the story too, except he's not the one telling it. Maybe he is in a way. I don't know. I'm not sure if I follow it. I can't tell what's true and what's not. And yet, does it explain it? Does it explain why? Does it explain why he ended things? I'm not sure. We're really not sure. Maybe. What do you mean? He either explained it or he didn't. It's just... what? It's not that simple. I don't know. Here, look at this. What's all this? This is a lot of pages. Is this what he wrote? Yes, you should read it. Maybe start at the end, then circle back. First, though, I think you better sit down. And with that, we are finally done the book. I not entirely sure how much footage I recorded. I know it's a lot. What is it called again? I wanted to keep it concise, but you know, I also didn't want to miss anything important, so I just, you know, kept on adding the things I felt were important. So then by the end of the story, where it gets, like, you know, really important, I just started, you know, adding literally everything. But yeah, I guess now it's time for the analysis to start. So Jake is a very troubled character, as we see. He takes his own life. There is so much sadness and guilt in him. He obviously has depression, like crippling depression, because he's so low and down, and he obviously has social anxiety of some sort, because he just does not speak to other people. He may be autistic. We're you know, it's hard to tell. He might be. He might not be. He might also have DID by the end of the book. You know, there's a lot of like stuff about we. So like he might have DID, or those might just be delusions. It's hard to tell. But what we do know is, you know, he is racked with guilt and like sadness about his life, just the entirety of it. He had so much potential. He was like, you know, he was so smart. He was a really nice guy. It's just, you know, he didn't, like, if he had a like, if he had a second chance, maybe he could have done something different. But at the same time, it literally says in the book, maybe he would have changed something, maybe it wouldn't. Maybe this is still how it would have ended, which is really, really sad to think. And it's just like, so I'm gonna try to, like, go over some things that are important. So the pig, the pig, the pig is very important. It's like a metaphor, because the pig, with maggots under its stomach, just like, being eaten away at, that sort of like, but like not being able to, like, no one being able to tell that it's happening, but it's happening, and they look content from afar, but up close, when you get to see them, they're actually in agony. That is, obviously a, direct, like, reference to Jake's, like, condition by the end. He is hurting so bad, but he looks fine to, everyone around him, because he doesn't let them close enough, and they don't get close enough to actually see what's wrong. So he is being eaten alive by the guilt and the sadness and just everything. And if you had some trouble understanding the story, which I'll be honest, I did. Basically, the entire story is happening inside of Jake's mind. All the characters are just, versions of, like, people that he met in that he met in real life, or maybe like, so either they're all, like, caricatures that he created in his own head, and he's like, like talking to himself with these caricatures, or he has DID, and all these different caricatures are, like, actually different, like, personalities, and they're all, like, talking to each other. But it could be either of those. Like, it's hard to tell. But basically, the entire story happens inside Jake's head, and the main character, if you couldn't tell by the end, she is just some girl that he met, like, that was nice to him, like, years and years and years ago. And he's thought this entire story about her, how, like, maybe if they got together, stuff would, like, maybe it'd be better. But then even then, he thinks, if I got together with that girl, it's still not gonna end good, and she's gonna want to end things with me, and it's like, it's not gonna be good. And, like, he hates himself so much, like, with a burning passion. What is it called again? When Jake talks about how much he hates, like, Jake sees the janitor, and the first thing he says, "Oh, I know people like that. He's a creep. I hate that guy." So that's Jake literally, like, saying what he thinks about himself. He thinks he's a creep. He thinks he's, like, a terrible person. He thinks he's a loser. He thinks, he's just a really bad dude. He thinks he's terrible. He thinks he's, like, awful, and he hates himself, and he despises himself with, like, a burning passion. Which is what we're seeing when Jake is so angry, like, so violently angry at the janitor, because that's the janitor being so violently angry against himself. And by the end of the story, with all the wheeze, all the characters in the book start realizing, like, the main character of the book starts to realize that she isn't, like, her own person, and she's instead, like, either a personality or a delusion made up by Jake. And she, like, she stops talking as, like, I did this. She and, like, the rest of, like, everyone in Jake's head, whether they're delusions or personalities, start saying we. Like, they start referring to themselves as a collective, rather than, like, I, as in, like, as in, like, me, as in, like, the individual. And what is it called again? It's just, like, it's so sad, because what is it called again? Just, like, it's just his parents obviously, he obviously, like, the way we see his parents, they're like, pretty, like, weird. And that's probably how he sees his own parents, which is, like, he always had issues with them. But, like, he always had issues with them, and like, there were these problems, and he didn't really like his parent. He liked his parents, but, like, he worried about them, and, like, they'd fight and argue all the time, and they weren't, like, made for each other, and there's all the problems. the painting in the basement is very it it's very important. I think it's trying. I think the figure that we see is Jake himself. I think that's trying to symbolize Jake himself. Oh yeah, also the collar. The collar is, Jake asking, the main character, the narrator, hey, should I kill myself? Sorry, I don't I have depression. I laugh at the thought of suicide. It's fucked. I know. Oh my bad. Uh, yeah. What is it called again? Uh, Basically, it's you know it's very like the caller was Jake the entire time, and he's just asking, the main character, the narrator, hey, should I keep on? Do I stay here, or do I continue, or do I end it? That's what the questions are. And like, he's just like trying to ask this delusion, or this personality, and then by the end she finally figures it out, what's been happening, and she decides, okay, you know what, that's I know what's gonna happen, and then she decides, or she more accurately, like, Jake finally decides, okay, it's time to end it. And then there's the other, then we get the, like, little bits of people talking about what happened, and that is like, the people, the school board, authorities, just all, like, everyone around the school talking about what happened to Jake, and like, how dare he not, get better, and like, how dare he be depressed. Thank God we're not like him. We're normal. He's crazy, which is, not great. But like, what is it called again? This is a, Jake is a very, very interesting character, and I relate to him a lot because I also have depression. Like, what is it called again? I'll be entirely honest. If I was in the same, like, if I had to go through the same things he did, like, if by the end of my life I am in the exact same position Jake is, there is a 99% chance I'd end. Which, I know you're not, but I'm better now. I'm a lot better now, but like, if it gets that bad, then, just, I'm going. Like, so, like, I like get that. Like, and also, the story keeps on going about how, thinking of ending things, and like how, you can't fake a thought. You can do it. You can fake any action. You can do whatever, but you can't fake a thought. And that is interesting to me because, I have a lot of thoughts of, like, death. So that was like, interesting to think about that. Like, my brain, like, wants that, but like, I don't know. And then also just, the just I'm thinking of ending things, like, as someone with depression, I didn't even realize until, like, I didn't realize most of the time, like, as soon as I read the title, I'm like, oh, it's just about, suicide. But then it took me a while to realize that the main character was actually talking about, ending things, like ending a relationship with her boyfriend. So what is it called again? That's what she meant. But what I read it as every time is, I'm thinking of ending things as I'm going to kill myself. So, like, yeah, it's just there's also a film on this book. There's a lot. There's a lot different. The beginning is pretty different. The middle is pretty different. The end is completely different, and it's also just, very great, very, very, very sad. They change a couple things. The book and the movie are, like, on par for me. They're both, like, great pieces of fiction. But yeah, like, I very much empathize with Jake because, I do hate myself a good amount, and like, well, trying to get better, but it's just hard. And like, his thoughts about, like, does life matter? Just like, why keep on going? I feel that because I've had very similar thoughts to that. But yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling now. Thank you for watching.